this is episode number 2 of the Frame and Focus podcast. Today we have David Wells, DP, and Natalie Rhea, our director for the day. I got that last name right.
You got it right.
So thank you guys so much for coming out. And we're excited to have y'all and dig into the project. I guess, Natalie, we'll start with you. If you want to give us a little background of your story and your kind of come up and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I am a filmmaker, photographer, and these days I primarily work in commercial, outdoor lifestyle, Western, and country music.
Cool.
Those are my niches. And I have a film degree, and I went to school for film. But while I was in school, I also was a radio DJ. And through that, I got connected with a lot of country artists and their managers and radio promoters. And so when I graduated, I pursued that path of filming behind the scenes and going on the road with bands. And that led me to music videos, et cetera. And that's how David and I eventually ended up meeting, was having this mutual friend connection with Shane Smith and the Saints. But over the years, I just kind of graduated, as you do with your work, and get clarity on what you actually really enjoy doing. And I found that to be directing and writing, and really honed it into commercials, specifically writing comedy and short form narrative, and then still pursuing music videos, and then a lot of outdoor rec type stuff. So hunting, fishing, and Western. Yeah.
Cool.
That's a short synopsis. I could go down many rabbit holes.
Yeah. David?
I did not get a film degree like Natalie. I actually got
I didn't say I learned anything in film school. I said I have a film degree.
Well,
that was probably one of the questions that I had. But sorry, David. What do you think about that? Because it's always comes to mind that when you want to jump into this, the decision making of, should I go to school for this or should I just jump into it? What do you think about that?
My perspective on working in film specifically is, if you know that you want to work for yourself or freelance and you want a degree, get a business degree, because you are an entrepreneur and you still have to learn how to run a business and accounting, et cetera.
That's a good one.
And film specifically, I went to TCU, and we have a really small film school there, and I found myself not being able to get into courses that I actually needed to be in, like post-production, because athletes and honor students get first choice in those classes. And so by then it fills up, and I never got the opportunity to take a lot of courses I wanted and needed to help me elevate my career. And so I taught myself. And everything I know today is from pursuing that on my own time. Outside of school, I was freelancing every day and learning and just doing and being on sets and interning at production houses or production houses. And I don't think you need a film degree. And everything at the same time, I found some books from some of my courses recently when I was going through some boxes, and that information is outdated so quickly, especially with the gear that we're using. And so you're having to stay on top of the times and what's trending, and you can only really do that when you're actively part of that and part of crews. And so I don't encourage people to go to film school. I don't think you need it. But I do encourage people, if they want to be an entrepreneur, like that's a completely different language that doesn't come naturally to us. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
That's
if anything, I've heard that film school is, the biggest thing that people get out of it is just network.
For sure.
You build a lot of contacts, and everyone's kind of doing the same thing. So you have this kind of automatically built-in network of people that are doing all the same things. But as far as knowledge and like getting placement in some kind of job, I feel like that doesn't really exist.
I think at the end, if someone is interested in hiring you, they won't go to your resume or something like that. They will go directly to your work.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
I can't remember the last time I've sent someone a resume.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I haven't touched mine for 10 years or something. I don't even know.
Honestly,
It's a good feeling.
It's been a long time.
I don't even know who actually goes to your own website anymore. It's like people will just go to your Instagram, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole different conversation, because it's like you now have to have this curated look.
Yeah.
But
of what
also,
you're doing.
you don't anymore, because Instagram's just TikTok with reels.
Yeah. Which is all of a sudden now your stuff doesn't get looked at because what would I put a reel up for? Like, that's not the type of stuff we're making. But also you have to conform it to that too, right? Clients are looking for that.
Exactly.
You know what this is completely like down that rabbit hole, but not down the rabbit hole of what we're here for. But what I was talking to someone recently about is the irony of, the reels and the vertical format videos and having to conform to that. But video is not meant to be vertical. It's meant to be horizontal. But it's so easy for someone to just turn their phone 90 degrees
hard, right?
and all of a sudden it's horizontal. It's crazy.
I mean, think about when you watch like a high-end movie trailer, right?
Yeah,
like if you're going to watch, like, so the new Flash trailer came out or whatever.
You're going to turn your phone.
You're going to turn your phone. Right, you're not going to watch it there, and they're not going to put out a trailer. Like, guys, you will find me 6 feet underground the day that I see a vertical movie trailer for a blockbuster. I will just die.
Well, yes, and when
like they make the little 15-second
sizzlers
sizzlers or whatever that are tall, but like if you see a proper 2-minute
trailer,
movie trailer and it's vertical, I'm done.
Yeah. What do you think about? Because, like for example, the last movie. The Justice League, Zack Snyder, I believe, he's kind of promoting the crop aspect ratio in a movie, because he was like 4:5 or something like that.
Oh, really?
I'm actually not a huge Zack Snyder fan.
Yeah.
I haven't watched a ton of it, so I think the last thing I saw of Zack Snyder was I wanted to watch whatever that zombie movie was. I actually don't remember the name. It's because he shot on those Canon rangefinders, those rangefinders that were rehoused. Yeah. And he shot wide open on like an 0.95 50 mil handheld. So when you watch it, and it's funny, right? He wrote it, he directed it, and he DP'd it. So super ambitious. Yeah. And when you watch the movie, it kind of comes off that way. You're like, oh, wow, I feel like one person really just stretched themselves. The focus falls a lot, which is nice. Like, but we're watching like a major motion picture thing that he's done. Like, Zack Snyder's not a small name. Yeah. So it's like one of those things where I noticed where I was like, it's fine. Like, it didn't bother me. But
that was a choice.
When you're at that level, like, that was a choice right there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You could have very easily had the budget to hire a DP or a cam op or anybody, or just like don't pull focus, right? Have somebody else pull it for you.
I think to your question about the 4x5 crop, I mean, I've seen it done. Like a DP we work with, Peter Longno, does the 4x5 horizontal, but 4x5 vertical. It's such a disservice to the talent for blocking, not being able to move in their space, for beautiful landscape shots to really establish a scene. Like, there's so much missed whenever you compress it into that small space, and it's really disappointing to see that.
Yeah. You can't compare it to the widescreen view.
I wish it would have came in. I ordered a hat. I know they're like all over the internet now, but it says make video video horizontal again.
Does it really?
Yeah, I ordered it. I'm seeing like 3 or 4.
You didn't buy me one?
I will buy. I'll get you one. I'm just like, I'm gonna wear it on every set.
I will do that.
Yeah. You know the worst one is, and I could get roasted for this one because I'm not the most technical DP. That's just not gonna be my style, right? Like, I'm gonna leave that. Like, actually, I don't even. If Josh is watching this, like, he's the one who does all my camera specs. Like, I'll just tell him what I want. Like, I'd never touch the AC side. Yeah. But it's one of those things where a lot of people now are making you turn the cameras sideways.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Oh my God.
Driving me crazy. Yeah, and I've argued, which I don't want to be that DP who's arguing with everybody, but we don't have to mount the camera sideways. Like, just put like a mat on your monitor for the tall and shoot it, right? This stuff's going to be 1080. So if I'm on an 8K sensor, 6K, 4K, like, we're not losing any resolution here, right? Yeah. I mean, this, even if you shoot at 4K, we're downscaling this amazingly small to 1080 for your phone. Yeah. Why in the world are we mounting?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Mini LFs.
I hate it so much.
And these huge cameras sideways. Yeah. It is blowing my mind. Yeah. And you'll have some of these DPs like, oh, it's just max resolution. I was like, to be downscaled to 1080?
Yeah, I could.
No, that's not.
It's like, you literally can toggle on any monitor nowadays. Like, even the entry-level monitors have all of the aspect ratios baked in. They have a 1x1. They have a
these small HDs
9x16.
Everything we're using here today is just like one quick button and you can see the frame.
Right?
It's like, why would you not?
And every Climb monitor has it too, right? Just turn them on. They have no clue the camera's not mounted sideways.
Yeah, I don't know. It's silly.
Sorry, I was like thinking about where that was going. I was like, that was what it was. I literally was on a shoot not too long ago, and they wanted to mount the camera sideways, and I just like fought till the better end over it, and finally we did not mount it sideways. And
but it was the client like requesting, no, I want to see the camera.
Because they said that we want to use the entire sensor. And I was like, what?
Come on.
Like, okay, well,
That's silly.
I mean, we're still down scaling that image quite a bit.
Yeah.
So David, give us
background.
dude.
Yeah, didn't go to film school. I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was a kid. I think I always wanted to be in front of the camera. I would be like the kid who'd watch like Lion King, and then I would sing like, with a hairbrush, all of the songs and all that stuff in the living room.
Really?
Oh yeah. I was a performer when I was a kid. I'm a Leo. I was just like always,
My wife is a Leo, so I understand that.
Yeah, I would watch. So I didn't realize at the time what it was doing, but I was one of those kids where I would watch Indiana Jones and I had like a whip around. Like I would have something that would hold a whip on my belt, or I would, Thundercats, and I had like the Sword of Omen, like I carried it everywhere, right? Like all that stuff. I wore Batman capes. So at the time I didn't realize that the movies were just influencing like my life in this massive way. Yeah. So as we do now, right? Like you'll have, 200 crew members on a movie, and then we only really know who starred in it, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize at the time I was just being attached to this, giving all the credit to these like movie stars that were coming out of it. And as you get older, I got more into the artistic side of it and like how it's made, and probably like most kids, we rode BMX bikes and I rode motocross, and I just wanted to capture all of it. So I was always trying to figure out ways to shoot it. Cool. And then it's time to go to college. And I was like, I'm going to go to film school. And my dad was like, why would you go to film school? I was like, were you going to try to make movies or something? I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
That sounds awesome.
But in your Batman voice, though.
Yeah. I'm going to make movies. And he goes, can you just get a degree in something real? And then, if you decide you want to do it later, then you can do it. And I was just like, it stuck with me. And for some reason, as you are moldable as a child, I was like, oh, I have to do something else. So I went to architecture school. I was like, it's in the same house. Like you can be creative.
Yeah.
And at the time I thought architects made a lot of money. Yeah. They don't. And so I went to school for 7 years to get a degree in architecture. And then did that for 4 years and hated every minute of it, spent all my time making little films on the side.
That's
cool. Yeah, I was like around that recession time. I think like 2010 or something. I don't remember what year it was, or 11. And we needed to cut a bunch of budget on a project. And I was like, I quit. Take my salary.
I don't want to do the same.
I quit. I'm done. And I went to go work at a little startup at the time that I hated because we worked a ton. I didn't even know how to expose an image on a camera. I was more directing at that point, which at that time, everybody thinks they're a director. Yeah. Turns out it takes a lot to be a director. Yeah. I met one of my super close friends now, Greg Folks, and he kind of taught me how to shoot. And that was like 12 years ago or something. 10 years ago. I don't even know.
That's awesome.
And that was it. I was just like hooked, and I was like making no money, working at a startup, making these.
Was the startup around film, or was it a tech? Or what?
No, it was a tech company. I don't even want to give him the mini shout out of what they were. It was a terrible company.
They don't mention it.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't exist anymore.
Were you shooting for them, or was that just?
I was managing. It was like a platform where you monetize like what you were doing, right? If like a guy was a BMX rider, he could get on the platform and like teach people how to ride, and you would book him. So when you have like 6 BMX riders, right, you would kind of want to know what you're getting into by picking them. So we'd shoot these like portrait pieces over them. It was like an interview with B-roll.
Is that how you met Zach?
Yeah, that's how I met a lot of people. And, all these people in this city kind of got on that platform. So I can't say it was terrible because I have some of my greatest friends because all we did was shoot. I mean, we would shoot 3 of these a day. And at the time, I didn't realize how just into the ground we were running ourselves. I was just thankful to be making a living at all, like any type of living, even if it was a crappy one, with a camera in my hands. I was like, this is great. And so that company came to a halt like 3 years later. I probably stayed 2 years longer than I should have. But I do cherish that. One thing I can take away from that is like my work ethic was through the roof. Like I would work circles around you. And it wasn't because I wanted to. It's just like that's how I thought we did stuff. And so at the time, I was like, I'm going to freelance. And if you don't have any connections and you're not at like some larger level doing this work, freelancing is rough.
Yeah, it's hard.
You know? And so all of a sudden you're trying to direct, shoot, edit, gaff. Like it's just it's not possible. And nobody's here to be like, it takes a lot of people to do this.
Yeah.
You know, you're just like, I can do it all. Find the clients, do it all. You know?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the natural way to go at the beginning. That way you gain the experience, right? You get you know how to do things and stuff. But it gets to the point where you cannot do it all the time.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Well, and from there, I went to a company called Flow Sports, and that was really kind of what opened up my career for me. They, at the time, they had like, there was a wide array of people that did stuff in kind of the video format there. There was just shooters who would go out and shoot small stuff and then edit their own things and kind of make bite-sized content. And then there was probably, at the time, 4 of us that we were sort of in-house DPs, I guess you would say, but I didn't even really know what that was at the time. And so, we also just didn't have a ton of budget for like lighting and stuff, but it was my first chance to have like a traditional kind of pseudo cinema camera, right? Like I had an FS7 Mark II, I think. Wow. And then we were kind of lighting things on our own. So I would go somewhere and like just whatever I wanted to make out of it. Like we would send a producer from the office kind of helping you with the story, and we were making these sports documentaries, kind of like tiny bite-sized 30 for 30s, because it was all sports. And at the time, we were just doing a ton of them, and so no one was there to tell me what I couldn't do. So it's like, cool, I can make these look whatever I want to.
Yeah.
And so I just dove deep down the rabbit hole of like how to, you know, light and different things, and the rest was kind of history. And over the course of being there for 3 years, our budgets got bigger and larger and larger, and all of a sudden we were renting cameras and lenses and hiring gaffers and doing things like that. And during the pandemic, I got fired from Flow Sports. I was going to say I quit, but that's not true. There was nothing for me to do. Like we weren't shooting, and I'm not going to edit. So wound up leaving there, and I remember thinking this. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next? Like I can't freelance again. It didn't work the first time. And so I was like, well, I'm going to take a month off and just chill out and then see what happens. And it just like worked. And I don't know what happened from there. I think somewhere in the middle of that, Natalie and I met on Instagram randomly. We still don't know. I don't know how exactly it happened. Like
you slid into his DMs, or
We
had a mutual friend.
Friends.
I met a guy named Zach Stover from that startup company. I shot a thing with him. He was like doing skateboarding stuff at the time. But he was also like, this kid just does everything. He's like a drummer and a skateboarder, just like none of these. Yeah. He's like building his own like cabin on his land where he's like got a motocross track and like I don't know. Zach's a wild card. And he all of a sudden was like, I've been drumming for like my church and stuff. And then he was like, I'm drumming for this band. I want you to meet him. And he's like, the band's called Shane Smith and the Saints. I didn't know who they were at the time. And I went to a show, and I don't think Shane knew what he wanted at the time. He was like, can you just come shoot footage? And at that time, I wasn't editing anything. So I think he wanted me to edit something, and we wound up never making an edit from that show. But he had me out like a couple more times to shoot some stuff. And Natalie either sent me a DM or commented on one of my things. It was like, oh, I love Shane. I've been working with them. And then I looked at Natalie's work, and I think that was around the time she had just directed a spot for Flatland. It was the one with the cop and all that stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Like Natalie's super talented. Would love to work with you on something. And then I think a month or two later, Shane came to me and was like, I want to shoot my first real music video. And so I go, Natalie, would you want to direct this music video?
But I think it was funny when you approached me, because I think you said something along the lines of, it's for this band that I'm kind of friends with, Shane Smith. I was like, yeah, I've known Shane for a decade. We're
Yeah.
we're
Oh,
friends.
really? That's cool. How'd
That's
you meet him? Did you grow up with him or?
No, when I had graduated college and started that path of working with a lot of country artists, I had also I had my own path doing that, but I had also married a touring musician.
Cool.
No longer married to a touring musician, but in that circle, I worked with a lot of artists in the Texas quote unquote music scene.
Cool.
And Shane had been one of those artists among many others like Flatland Cavalry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had known him for a long time, and then that came up and it was very synergetic.
Yeah.
And that was the first project you guys had collaborated
Yeah.
on?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we
That's
shot
awesome.
at like 10 p.m. in a warehouse in like 10-degree weather. And and we made Stover really mad because we poured flour all over his drums. Which,
Yeah.
funny
The
enough,
snare
he
hits
lost
popping
those
up.
drums in a fire.
So
Oh, really? Oh.
they wanted Shane's idea that he wanted to do for this was for me to, I was directing it and editing it, and he wanted to interweave this BTS footage that they've shot over the years, because the song is basically about them as a band traveling, touring together, and all these experiences that they have, and the hardships and the high times and the low times. And so I was interweaving all of this stuff, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks after we shot this, their bus caught fire and they lost everything.
Oh, man.
And I ripped some of that footage that Stovey had posted, because I didn't want to ask them. I wanted to surprise them with it.
Yeah.
So I ripped some of it that he had posted and added it to the end of the video and made everyone cry, which was my goal.
Still a really great music video.
Oh, I can't wait to go back and watch that.
Wow.
It was Oklahoma City was the
Oklahoma
song.
City. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we kind of went from there on working stuff with Shane. I think the music video did really well. And then our next one, did we do one between then and Terlingua?
I'm sure we've done some commercial work in between the two of those, but we did Shane came to David again and said, I want to do this live, kind of like a full album recording of the band, and I want to do it on a rooftop in Austin. And I said,
Well, this was during the time
No.
everybody's doing the Facebook concerts. That was
Right.
originally where the idea
Oh,
came from.
wow,
Is like,
okay.
all these bands were doing Facebook shows, but it was just like on their iPhone, and it was like a
Right.
really
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
thing. And yeah, he wanted to do this
on a
Like a
rooftop.
Fully produced
full
and do it
produced
right
like
and-
concert, right?
Cool.
So we could go to them.
But I said, I'll do you one better. We're going to go to the desert,
Yes.
Cool.
and we're going to shoot it out there.
There you go. That's awesome.
I
then
still get on
everything went
sets. I still get on sets with people who have heard of that.
Yeah,
shoot.
it's kind.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Everything went wrong.
Really?
Everything that God could possibly put on you
Yes.
went wrong, and it still turned out beautiful, and it's some
Beautiful.
of our best work.
Well, one of our questions was the biggest challenges on set. So you guys want to elaborate?
That would
on
be.
That would be that one.
That sounds like it would be a yeah.
That's the one.
It's such a laundry list.
Really?
It just
don't-
started. It started from the very get go. Of we didn't have the right budget for it because it was a very huge idea. I mean, it was a big. I mean, we're going to take a band out into the middle of the desert.
With no, you need generators and what power.
I mean, Terlingua
don't
has
have
an
that.
hour of like no cell phone service.
Terlingua
where you can
also
get
has
there.
nothing there.
Yeah,
There's
it's a ghost
not
town.
a lot.
Yeah,
There's not a lot going on there. And they're just like down to, is the bus even going to make it down this road? Because there's
Oh, no.
really big divots in it. And I had to fill it in with dirt earlier that day before the
my
bus was going to
gosh.
go through. And then I said, don't let the bus driver go off the road. And they went off the road and they
my
got
God.
stuck.
Oh,
So they're there for
3
like 5
days.
days after,
Yeah.
or 3 days after we
after
shot.
the shoot.
But
Oh
also,
my gosh.
this is in September, and a monsoon came through, not in monsoon season. The night that, because we got there a day early and we're setting everything up, and we're going to do a sunrise shoot the next day. And that night, like immediately after we had set everything up, on top of this big hill where we have to load a bunch of shit up there and got a whole dolly up there somehow.
Yeah, we had a
And-
Fisher 11 on a track, like an actual like a half semicircle track. And it was like not only was it in the mountain range, but then we took
On
it
top of
up
very steep
of a steep mountain.
hill that's like a soft, mushy sand. So, if it gets wet, it's basically a landslide situation. I think that night David was having nightmares that the dolly just
gonna
went
slide
off the hill.
Well, it was bad because we got in late, right? It's like a 7 something hour drive to Terlingua. And I have to drive slow because I have a huge trailer full of equipment. We have a dolly, we have all these cameras and tripods and all this stuff in the back. And we get out there and then we pull it out and everybody gets kind of pseudo prepped because we weren't going to light it, right? It was just going to be it was inspired from the Coldplay Live from Jordan. So it was basically shooting them as the sun was like blew out. Like it hasn't come up yet, but enough exposure. And that's so we were like, we're going to shoot it on these FX9s because we've got these, the variable ND that we can just kind of start rolling. That way we're not having to stop down and traditional cinema camera, you see the stops go. So we shot it anamorphic as well. So we have these huge lenses, huge cameras, and we put a Fisher 11 up on the hill. And we set everything thinking like, cool, because we have to be ready to rock in the morning before the sun comes up. And it's already dark, so we're not getting any camera tests. We leave everything, and and it's going to be recorded live. So we have sound mixers out there who are still doing sound check. It's dark, wind's blowing, and all of a sudden we get a warning that it's going to storm.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
And we had, I think at this point, gotten back to our Airbnb, and the band had basically told us it's starting to get gnarly out here, 10 minutes up the road, and they had to tear down everything that we set up that night.
Well, no, they did not everything.
The sound stuff.
Oh, yeah, the sound stuff. They just put tarps over the Fisher. And so, the brakes are on, but it's on like a half track, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we just covered it in a tarp.
Oh my
it's like a hydraulic system. We're just like going tarp it real
Should
quick.
Be fine, right?
And I didn't even see that before I left. Like Keaton, my dolly grip was just like, I tarped it. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, then that night the rain comes in, and we this is like 2 a.m, and we have to get up at 4, and all of a sudden, there's water coming through the roof of our Airbnb, and we've got camera gear everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we're having to tarp everything inside the house as well and move shit around. And then we wake up, and as soon as we get out the door, it's like a foot deep of water. And David had left a little bit before the rest of the crew and I went, and he has 4x4 on his car and was able to get through down this really weird road that's like, it's not even washed out. It's
road.
Worse than washed out.
Yeah, it goes through 2 river crossings that just completely wash it out.
And no one else, I couldn't get my car through. No one else could get their car through. So all the crew's stranded with me. And then David makes it to the band, and we have to figure out how we can even get crew there if we're even going to shoot anything.
Yeah, and the only people I have in my car is Greg, who I brought out, who's shooting all the drone footage, and his girlfriend Fallon, who was PAing for us and helping make breakfast and stuff. And so it's me and the 2 of them, and we pull up, and Shane's tour bus is out there, and they stayed in it that night. And
because it's stuck.
Yeah, because it's stuck.
Oh my God.
And he is mortified because he spent a lot of money to make this thing happen, and obviously we're not. I think he lost. He doesn't think we're gonna be able to shoot anything. I'm like, okay.
But thankfully, Pivot's my middle name, and I just figure out a way to pivot on everything. And David,
but it's bad. Guitars are in the washout, on the backside of the hill. Stuff is covered in mud. Half the audio equipment doesn't work. And they're not there, right? So I'm Shane's just sitting in his trailer, just upset because, some of the money can be recovered, but all the rented stuff, it's, we're kind of in a bad way.
At this point, even if you're able to figure out a way to accomplish something, everyone's in a mood.
Yeah,
it's
not going to go smooth.
It's just, it's going to be visible on camera.
We're not getting that pink and purple sunrise that we wanted. And
no, but it's actually pretty cool. By the time we had to cut, we ended up being able to film. We just figured it out. And by the time we had to cut it into 2 segments, because you can see in the background by the time we're shooting the last song, the monsoon, a rainstorm coming right towards us, in front of us and behind us.
Yeah.
And I had to call it, and Shane wanted to keep going. And I was like, listen, as the director and producer of this, I'm going to have to say no.
Yeah.
But you are paying for this, and if you want to wreck your gear and keep going, happy to do that.
Well, they lost playback, so they can't even hear themselves.
Right. And it sounds
really?
gorgeous.
It sounds
for
gorgeous
them not
for-
hearing themselves.
Yeah, even for if they could have heard themselves, sound gorgeous.
I mean, it sounds like a studio recording.
Yeah. And so we
Really?
pack everything up because I'm watching this hurricane come at us from the horizon.
And we've only made it halfway through the set.
So we're supposed to do 15 tracks. We did 8.
Jeez.
And so we go back and we're sitting there and Shane is upset. And mind you, we don't have any lighting equipment, right? Because we were just going to shoot as the sunrises, right? Just natural backlit and everything, which it worked out fine because it was just overcast. So it's just like, even. I mean, and it still looks pretty. And we get back and we don't have anywhere we can shoot. We don't have any ideas. One of our cam ops has to go back to Austin with
Both
his
of them
camera
do.
that we rented it from. Oh yeah, both of them do. And one of them we rented his camera. So Mike Kozlenko, he came out and he was B-cam mopping and brought his FX9. He has to go. Ari, who ran the dolly cam, he has to go. Keaton had to go. I have 2 cameras, a rented FX9 of my own and a set of Atlas Orions and a set of sticks.
Oh my god.
And so we have no clue what we're going to do. The guy who let us shoot on the land also owned the little church, which is so funny because I got married in that church a few years later. But we see this abandoned church and we're like, we're going to shoot in there. And so we waited and it's the sun, even if it's just flat light, there is still a place where the sun kind of like comes through. And so we put them in the church and we decided to do it acoustic.
Cool.
And so the first 8 songs are full band, and then
The
inside the
second half
church is all acoustic
wow.
in the church pews. And it was beautiful.
It still turned out great. But in my position, when everyone's still stressed out and like, I don't really know if this is a good idea, if we want to shoot here, I'm like, y'all, we're losing daylight and we don't have extra light. So if you're going to do this, we have to do it literally right now. And I do not like producing. I only like
Crack the
directing.
whip,
I
yeah.
hate being the person that has to
That's
crack
the
the whip and
worst.
be the bitch.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Well, but it has to happen sometimes because she has to AD herself on this thing too. So she's directing and ADing. And then it's funny because you look at it and the only way to make it happen is I have one camera on sticks and then I'm on an easy rig on the other one. So we went from 3 cams and all these big movements on the first one to a lock shot. And then I'm on the easy rig floating on the other one. And it was so chaotic to get everything set up. There's one Easter egg in the video that no one ever sees.
The bird?
No, the backpack. The sound guy came in and set this backpack in the background. And mind you can't see it, right? Because we're shooting anamorphic and it's probably 30 feet in the background. But I see this black blob. I just know what it is. And mind you, there's so many things that people don't see, like Bennett's feet are just covered in mud.
Oh, yeah, but that's
Like he
organic.
is covered in mud. And we're in this church and then he's got a beer that he's drinking in between little takes and stuff. And it was just this, it was beautiful.
It was
It was beautiful.
Yeah, you
and
guys
if
made
you look behind the scenes of how that happened, you would just be, oh my
Crumbled.
gosh. Crumbled. Like what is,
How do they
what
make
is
such
going
a
on?
beautiful piece of art with all of the things
Everyone knows now, though, because no one can stop talking about how
I mean, all I
horrendous
see is
this
you is
shoot
over
was.
1 million views.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you see and you think, every little movement is planned.
Yeah.
As a sketch.
Yeah, this is
Utter chaos.
Wow,
And
that was
our
perfectly
comms were out
executed.
too and filming
Yeah.
too. And none of the cam ops could hear what I was
No.
saying.
No.
So I was just like tapping them. And thankfully, David and I have developed some language where I don't even have to audibly tell him. I just do a movement with my hand and he knows what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's like we're in a trenches.
That's basically
Yeah,
what we
gotcha,
did on the
gotcha.
duck blind. I was like,
Yep, get that.
It's funny because I'll
Shoot
just
that.
got it.
So
And
what do you sorry.
No, go ahead.
What are you
'cause
saying?
I was gonna transition into like our project we're talking about today.
Cool.
That's kind of where this one came. I wound up getting asked to DP this large project. At the time, I thought it was gonna be a large budget, all because it was a big budget. Come to find out, it's all these little pieces that have to come out of a larger one. And we needed scripts written and a director, and so I approached Natalie for this commercial because I thought it needed to have something to break it up because it was an air freshener. It was essentially an air purifier.
It's an air purifier.
It's an air purifier.
David knows if he calls me and asks me to do something like this, I say basically it's comedy or nothing. I won't write if it's not comedy because I'm not that good of a writer outside of comedy or something aspirational. Yeah. And for commercials specifically, like I would prefer to write comedy. And so they let me do that.
Yeah, and it is hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's a great piece.
I have a question before we jump into this project. What were the lessons for you guys that you kept from all that experience of filming that music video? Like, I don't know.
Film is not glamorous.
Film is not glamorous.
Film is not glamorous.
I think that is an amazing case study, and lots of projects go wrong. And at that time when we shot that, I decided to move into my car and move west for 6 months and just tour the US. Cool. And so I was on this not a spiritual journey, but a journey back to self and finding really a lot of peace in a hard time in my life. And when that came in the middle of that journey, or towards the end of it, and at that time, I had done so much work at that time that I translated it to stuff like this. When things would go wrong, it's so easy to get mad or focus on how things were supposed to be. And I had done enough work where I found this acceptance in peacefulness, in if things don't go right, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Let's find a plan B. Let's just find a path forward. And that was a great opportunity to it was really the first time I had the opportunity to test that theory out after doing all of that internal work. Yeah. And
now your middle name is Pivot, right?
And now my middle name is Pivot. Yeah, my middle name used to be Ray, which is now my last name. So now my middle name is Pivot.
Yeah. It also taught me, it's played out in multiple times in my career, where at the end of the day, we're storytellers. I service one aspect of that storytelling, which is visual communication. And it's taught me I don't always get to tell the story visually the way I want to, right? I'm a one small sliver of a much larger team, in that you have to take a step back sometimes and look at the larger scope of what this is. I literally worked on a music video not too long ago with a super famous person, and we had talked about lighting for quite a while, and we got there and the director just threw it out the window because he wanted more space, wider shots. And I was like, this is,
we can't pull off
that look.
Yeah.
And at some point I was like, you know what? This is a music video. It does not have to look like it. No one is going to watch this and be like, oh, you were like a half stop overexposed on that guy. If we rip one sheet of diffusion away to get another 5 feet. So inside I was dying, but all you saw on my face was like,
everything's great.
But
everything's great.
Having a good time.
Let's just rock some bare ass 60s on this guy's face. Cool, man. All right. Looking good.
Perfect.
But I was like, cool. Overall, he doesn't care, right? It's he's more servicing what the guy's doing and how he's interacting with the camera. And if he's got a little bit of harsh green light on one side. Because also we're just using saturated colors. So it's I was dying, but he was like, this is awesome. And I was like, cool. This is just one of those things, right? It's all servicing a larger part of the thing.
Yeah. I think in both examples and instances, it's, we have the responsibility of curating and crafting this story for somebody. And if you appear like you're stressed out, that is not doing anything helpful for them.
It doesn't help anyone. And
For real.
So
it doesn't. It also is one of those things when you do all those things, we on our way up, you do gaff your own stuff, you do op your own cameras, you do all those things. It's one of those things when you get there, I've done all these roles too, so at some point, if I ask you to do something, I promise you I've done it before.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
And so you go back to all those situations where somebody's complaining about something. I was like, I've had my hands in worse.
Yeah.
I've been shoveling a bus out of mud.
I know when Natalie showed up, I still give her a hard time. I think I have pictures of her car when she pulled in. She has like this hat thing.
Let's just first of all, I thought this was I got really innovative living in my car, utilizing space, and I thought this was one of the best inventions I had come up with. And
well, she built like a platform in my garage before she left.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I need to borrow some saws and tools and stuff, and built this kind of like platform bed that had drawers that could pull out. She had this thing that held hats, and then above where she sleeps was this tension cable, and it had all of the
accoutrements.
Toilet paper, napkins, paper towels, stuff.
That's
and I was like,
awesome.
So you sleep with TP above your head?
It was near my feet, but yes.
Near your feet. Yeah.
I was spun around. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fun. It's spun around. But
awesome.
It was. Yeah, she
still thinks about that, which means it was a great invention.
It was a great invention, and I just remember when she left for this trek she was going to do. I was like, man, that's going to be a cramped little sleeping quarters. She had a lot in there. She had like a cooler that. She had, I mean, she was straight up living out of that van, and I still can't get over the amount of ground you covered.
Yeah,
Like, I'm in Washington today, but I'm gonna drive down to Terlingua, and you're just like, what?
I went from Oregon to Terlingua like 4 times.
That's wild. To
Wow.
me. I don't even
for
like
shoots and stuff.
Which one was your favorite place?
Oh
all of
my
them?
goodness.
Terlingua.
Well, Terlingua, I basically live there. I spend a lot of time there throughout the year. But I was on this journey through all the states that are west and northwest of Texas. And I had never gone, well, I guess I've been to New Zealand, but I had never gone to a rainforest or spent significant time in the rainforest before. Mm-hmm. And when I was little, I tried to turn my room into a rainforest. And so going to the P&W was really magical.
That's cool.
And but Montana and Wyoming are both really dear to my heart there. And I'm there quite a bit now for shoots. But there's just something really magical about those places.
That's amazing.
That's one of the things that I admire from your work. Is like it's a lot of nature. It's always in the wild or something like that. It's probably that's your style, right? How do you decide when a project comes to you? Do you always have it like in the top of your head? Oh, I want to shoot somewhere.
Natalie's super intentional. She does that by choice. Like, she can build a career around what she wants. So if she likes, I mean, when she's not working, she's in the outdoors. Yeah. So she has naturally built a career around where she wants to spend her time. That was one thing I'll say about Natalie. She is the most intentional person. The way she presents herself or shows up or anything she does is well thought out. She hasn't just arrived there at like some random like curation, right? Yeah. It's very thought out, from the way she presents her outfits to projects to where she goes or how she talks. It's all building towards a larger scope of stuff. I have noticed that about her.
That's very kind.
So when you were on that trip, were you were shooting as you were going, or were you just exploring?
No, I was just exploring. I had just after I got divorced, I was kind of on this exploration of self, and literally the day before I got a divorce, his friend that he used to work with frequently asked me to come on board as head of video production at the startup in Austin, where I got to make some very great comedy ads, but it was a really toxic work environment. And so this was all kind of culminating at the same time. The pandemic hit, which had nothing to do with my decision, but I was like, I need to leave and just get some space. And so I quit my job. I ended my lease. I built out my Forerunner and just left. And there was no intention of shooting anything while I was gone. And I always joke, it kind of turns out I kind of turned into a landscape photographer because I was on my own. So I just started shooting a lot.
We'll just start shooting. This is pretty.
Right.
I have a camera. So.
Right. Yeah. And so I was shooting a lot more stuff like that. And then occasionally would have projects. Like, I think I got the call from David about Shane wants to do this thing in Austin when I was in Oregon. Yeah. And was like, nah, I think we should do this in Terlingua. And I would occasionally come back for projects, or I went up to Washington to help shoot a documentary about wolves while I was out.
Wow. Which is beautiful. That came out.
It just came out.
What's the name of it?
It is called Range Riders. So it's it discusses if they're is a way for wolves and ranchers to coexist on the landscape. It's very controversial, especially in the western states and PNW. Yeah, that came out it's in the festival circuit right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was by Colin Arisman, a very talented filmmaker. But yeah, to answer your question, I am very intentional about when I choose to do that. I love shooting in the outdoors. And over the years, I've really wanted to find a way to combine my passion and my history with music with the outdoors and filming these, because they actually pair quite well together. In shooting these acoustic videos in these really beautiful spaces and allowing space for that music to live. And then, I've shot some comedy stuff with David and on the outdoors, but and there's obviously outdoor stories, like anytime I tell a story in a cowboy or hunting or whatever, that naturally fits that niche. But a lot of the commercial work that I do, I kind of like that it coexists in its own box where we get to use really beautiful lighting and spaces and internal environments, because a lot of what I do is outside.
Like if you do the project, if you bring it, it's got some sort of tie back to giving back to the earth. Which
there's that too.
Well, and nobody's seen it.
even
Our short film we did, which is fantastic. It's like
I just
2
got the
years
audio
old.
redone on that, so we're going to re-release it here soon.
I mean, it's super old. It's like we shot it like 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, so we're still
And
wearing
it was
masks.
it was a short film about global warming. And in my mind, it was a comedy, and it was a really great way to communicate global warming to younger generations who don't really care, or you're not going to be able to feed them that information.
Yeah.
It was an AA meeting, and each one of the members plays an element.
Yes.
Like fire, wind, water, and they're all intervening, intervention with fire.
Fire and wind have a friends with benefits relationship, where wind is blowing fire.
Yeah.
It's real fun.
Oh my God.
You know what's funny? I always can tell who knows a little bit about climate change is when they get the Gale joke.
Oh,
and someone laughs
sure.
at them, and I'm like, oh, they know what a Gale is.
It was all improv actors that came together for this. So obviously I have a script that I've written, but allowing them the room to do what they want. And they brought some great flavor to that script. But to David's point, even when I'm not, I'm very passionate about conservation in the outdoors, and especially for our commercial shoots where it has nothing to do with the outdoors, I try to have as green of a production as possible. And I feed my crew very healthy.
Yes.
I think that's really important for crews, because I'm not
David's
going
on board, I think.
to carve a crew up in the middle of the
Pizzas
day.
and
They're going to want to
burgers.
pass
You want some
out.
pizza?
No, I don't like. Well, I mean, when she worked at Uni, that was always my favorite. It's funny. I'm now noticing so
pizza
much
snack.
of my life is kind of curated around all of my experiences, and a lot of them tie back to work with Natalie. I got married in Terlingua, which I'd visited Terlingua quite a bit. I was a big Bend person. I like to camp. I spent less time in the ghost town on the way out. And then that shoot was so impactful on everybody involved. I still hear people talk about it. And I loved Terlingua, so I started going back a lot. And then when I got engaged, we were trying to figure out where to get married, and we're a little older, and I was like, I don't want to have a big wedding, and we don't, I want to dance with my mom and my grandmother, so I want to have a real wedding. And we got married in Terlingua and got married in that ghost church. Yeah.
That's
and
amazing.
so all my friends that came to the wedding, the few of them that did, well, you're getting married where? And how do I get there?
Where do we have to go?
So some are flying in from New York and stuff, and they have to fly
drive
into
in.
Midland and drive 4 hours. And I was like, also, I'm not kidding. Stop in Alpine, make sure your tank is full of gas, and
Oh, I have
make
a
sure.
list I send people. when I
Yeah,
go there.
because if you get stuck in that hour, there is
right.
no cell service, and you are done.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so it's out in the middle of nowhere. And so by the time the wedding ended, everyone was like, I will come back here. This place is amazing. I think Shane bought a piece of
I was
property.
gonna say, was Shane out at the wedding? Did he come to the
Shane showed up to my rehearsal dinner and played a full show. It was at the Starlight Theater. It was.
I really wanted to make it
place.
that night. I was like teetering if I had the flu or not, and was like, I physically don't feel like I can drive 8 hours right now. I'm so sad I missed them playing.
Yeah, well, it's awesome, and at the same time, Shane, sorry if you're watching, but it was like the best night of the wedding, and even my wife agrees. It was like that was kind of tough because like our wedding day was. Like the concert night, like our rehearsal dinner was awesome. Yeah. And them playing, like not a lot of my friends have heard of them, and they're so good live, and they did a full-on show. And it was
that's so cool.
Amazing.
And it was at the Starlight, you said?
And it was at the Starlight, where we went and had celebratory cocktails after we finished the show. And it was one of those
Tie
moments that
everything
just
together.
tied back in. So a lot of those things that we do kind of have wound up being bigger, larger aspects of my life.
That's so cool.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
So, one of the questions that we had is I would like to know your creative process when a project comes in. Like, what is the first thing, or probably does people find you through your work or through your website, or it's word of mouth, or how people reach out to you?
The other thing that kind of tying into that, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but the Instagram versus website thing, I think I'm curious to your thoughts on there, because that's such like a debatable topic now. And what do you do on which platform and which social platform? Like, I'm curious on your strategy and recommendation there.
Natalie's better than I am.
Recommendations? Okay. I do not know.
That is actually, sorry to interrupt, because I heard your name once and through a video. Because the first video that I saw, and I mentioned it to you, it was the Tecovas commercial. Because a friend of mine, Alice, she did the color grading or stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I love her.
Yeah, I love her too.
I work with Alice.
I've gotten her so much work. I send her to everybody.
I have like one other person I work with that's not in Texas, but Alice gets most of the work.
Alice, between like I send Alice and David Zuccarelli everywhere now.
Yeah. Alice is but that's the thing, right? I'm a big believer in the cream rises to the top. She's fantastic.
She is.
Yeah. She is amazing.
She's
really good.
Shout out to Alice.
Shout out to Alice.
So good.
Yeah, so I saw this commercial and I was just wow, because of I love the concept. I love the nature aspect of it, and you have some fast shots that you can incorporate, and very creative shots like the guy going through the map and stuff like that. How you come up with that? Like,
this was the Tecovas spot, right?
The Tecovas, yeah.
That specific spot, that initially was supposed to be a short film, actually a pair of short films, where we were doing a short film on Chris Iyer, who's Mule Dragger in that. He's a cowboy out of Montana. And then he does a lot of work with the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation in Montana. And so we were also going to tell a story on them and weave him into it kind of synergetically. And, budgets and schedules are a thing. And so we ended up having to scale it down into just doing that really short piece. And he's a very poetic person, and he's very much like me, where we use wilderness as our therapy. And so I knew I wanted to tell his story in that way and honor what he's doing in that way. And simultaneously, at the same time, I'm very much over slow motion right now. I have been for a year or two. And I think a lot of value in video is in sound and sound effects. And
I think it's so overlooked too.
It's so overlooked, and it really is what like encapsulates you, and people forget that. And I think that art has been forgotten or lost in the last few years, last decade really, as we've been doing a lot more slow motion. It has its moment and it has its place, but it doesn't in my work right now.
Yeah, we shot. It's funny because I figured we did this piece with her company she works with now, All Hands, and I was like, well, cool, we're going to shoot a ton of slow motion duck hunting. Hardly any.
Yeah, I'm not about that life.
Which is great because I can't remember the last time I put my camera in slow motion. Most everything we shoot is 23:9:8.
Well, a lot of your stuff you're doing is narrative. Yeah,
narrative. So it's like it's funny when we start getting into all these camera specs and stuff. I don't even care anymore. I'm like, does it shoot 23:9:8?
Okay, cool.
Okay,
right,
cool.
right, yeah. But yeah, I mean, for that specific story, I really was leaning on poetry and emotion and that feeling of being with him. And a lot of the docu stuff that I do definitely leans itself that way. I just shot a film for Swarovski Optic and Modern Huntsman out in Big Bend, and it's very similar. It should be coming out here in the next 2 months. And we're having Alice color that. But nice. I mean, for other projects, the creative process, for music videos, if I hear a song, if it's really synergetic, that's one of my favorite words. Lisa makes fun of me because I say it all the time, but it's true. If it's synergetic, if I'm congruent with it, I write not lyrically, but I'll write to music videos how it sounds to me musically. And so I can immediately start seeing scenes in my head, like the first time I hear something. And then that's when I know, like, okay, I want to spend time writing this. And I just wrote something for Shane that hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do. Yeah. It's like short film meets music video for 2 of the songs.
Which is what he's always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And in the last album, he basically was like, can we do a music video for every song?
I go big though. Like I really reach for those stars when I'm writing stuff. Because I don't like traditional country music videos. I think are quite predictable, and I don't like writing predictable. And then for commercial work, I love observational humor, like just awkward things that people do that no one ever calls out. Taika Waititi is my favorite director. And so a lot of commercial work I do is comedy and just making light of everyday things or everyday relationships and making it feel human again. Because a lot of commercials in my mind are very stagnant and stale and crisp and perfect, and that's not how life is. And I want to be more reflective of that. So
that's beautiful.
And the ones you remember are the ones that are like that. Out of all the Super Bowl ads I watched, and there was a ton of great ones, the one that sticks to me is the Bud Light one, where and his name's gonna escape me right now. The guy from Whiplash, why can I think? And Maverick 2.
I didn't watch a Super Bowl.
Well, if you haven't watched this commercial,
but I
Bud
did
Light,
see
what
the
is
one
his name?
ad I saw was the flag football one, which I loved that.
The which one?
The flag football one.
Oh yeah, that was great. But it was kind of a comedy take, and why can I think? Literally one of the largest movie stars right now. He was the lead in Maverick 2, Top Gun. Him and it's funny because his actual wife is casted in the Bud Light commercial, and she's got like her phone on her forehead, and it's that really terrible like waiting music that you hear when you're on hold, and she's waiting, and he opens the fridge and gets a Bud Light out, and he's like scoots over dancing to it, and then like a beefed up version of it kind of comes on, and they're like dancing around the room, and they stop whenever the person comes back. It's like, are you still there, sir? Hold on one second. And it's so good. That's great. And it's funny because at the beginning I watched it and I was like, I'm always looking at lighting and how it's shot and all this stuff. So in the first 5 seconds I paid attention to it. And it's funny when you watch a really good piece, you don't
forget
give a crap about it anymore. Because, after 5 seconds, I don't think I looked at any of that anymore or how the camera was moving or anything. It was just a great story. Yeah, it was like so relatable. You're like, oh, I need to watch it again. I don't even know how it was shot the rest. I couldn't tell you if it's handheld or anything, which I always pay attention to. Yeah. No clue. It was fantastic. Wow. And Natalie does that in a lot of her comedy pieces where you could shoot them on. You could shoot them on anything. Yeah. Like the show she does right now with All Hands, it's very vintagey looking. It looks like handheld camcorder.
Well, that's because it is.
Oh, that we understand.
Details. I work with a brand called All Hands Cocktails. They do canned vodka soda, and they do a parody comedy series called Top Sportsman, where it's a parody on the 80s, 90s dry fishing shows, but I make it funny. And so there's a crew of 4 of us, including the talent, and I write and direct or co-write and direct, and we shoot it on an old 90s DV cam. Wow. Because I feel like it's really easy to tell when you shoot it on a cine camera and then add filters to it. Yeah. And so we wanted it to feel sloppy, like the 90s shows.
It looks great. I always thought you were shooting on something else and like just kind of like doing all the which you just shoot it in camera the way you want it to be.
Yeah. I think there's a new way to kind of use those cameras and plug it somewhere
It's funny how everything
And
makes
get the
full
feedback.
circle moments and comes back around.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
actually,
crazy, right?
you know, thinking about getting one just if the wife and I decide to like have a baby, just like capturing all those moments in life moments on those. Which you could do it on your iPhone, right? But it's that nostalgia of having same way we listen to vinyl records. It just gives
and
you
like
that
Polaroids
taste of,
and whatnot too.
you know, like really creating that art.
Yeah.
The old school
I
way.
love film. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, David? How's your creative process when a project comes in?
I like to think I don't have one. It just depends the project. I that's always what I say, and I don't know if I'm just like full of crap, and maybe I do have one, but I don't have like questions I really have to go through depending on the project. It's like normally I'll get approached about a project, and then we just start building everything
Usually,
from there.
I'll like if we have a project and I'll write it and I'll like write the shots and everything, and David's like, how do you want it lit? Like that's just your question is how do you want it lit?
Yeah, like
well,
I don't want to be the
this is what I'm
influence
going
of it,
for.
right? Because like I said, I'm this one piece of it, and so I didn't come up with the scripts. I didn't come up with any of this. I imagine that a director has like a vision in their mind.
Yeah.
So if I come at it first off with like my style or the way I want to do it, I feel like I've kind of
Like directed
just
this.
at least nudge them in a
Deviated,
direction that I want them to go, and I don't like doing that because then I feel like I have like a reel or a website full of the same looking crap
Yeah.
over and over.
That's a good point.
Right, so then all of a sudden, some people like that where it's like they have a style and a look where you can tell what they've shot. I would hope that you could look at stuff I shot and never be able to pick out what I've done, and that's when a director comes. I'm like, what are you thinking of? Like, how would you like the light to be? Like, what kind of role do you want it to play? And then we build something from there.
And then camera movement.
And then camera movement, everything, right? Like, how do you want it to appear as like you're the person there, or you're watching from somewhere else, or like what do you want the audience to feel? And then we'll choose everything from that. So it's usually that's where I like to
Very
start.
collaborative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
David's
I like to be
button.
on a collaborative set. I think none of us are above anything. So like I also like to work with gaffers that are collaborative. Like I sometimes I'll choose not to call for a fixture or something like that, and I'll
just give a
let them
description
know
or
what
whatever.
this is what I want it to
This is
feel
what
and how I want it to fall and stuff like that, and I'll just let them kind of interpret how we do that because I could call for everything, but then I feel like my gaffer just kind of turns into like a grip, right? He's just a set of hands.
Yeah.
And most gaffers, and especially in Austin, there's a lot of really talented gaffers. And I think if you just give someone the opportunity to help collab and create on that set, that's when you're really making like movies, right?
That's
We're
great.
really
Yeah.
making something great.
Yeah.
And letting everyone do their individual job and kind of shine as opposed to putting them in.
Yeah.
Like I
That's a
said,
good
we
point.
are just
That's a
this
good point.
tiny little sliver, all of us. So
Yeah.
it's just like everyone gets to have their. I hope when you watch it, you feel tied to it, right? Like I don't want one of my gaffers to just be like, oh yeah, I slopped gear around on that. Like I hope he feels proud that he brought something to that
Yeah.
piece, right?
Good point. Yeah.
So I say that's kind of how I tend to work.
What do you think about what made you go with the FX9 in the first place? Like there was
The price tag. I mean, no, it was one of those things where
it was your first cinema camera, or did you had?
no,
you
it was
had
my
another-
first one that I bought on my own. I like I said, I was in that time where I'd kind of just gotten fired from this company, and I was like, what am I going to do, right? You kind of have to be an owner operator,
Right.
especially if at this point I'm kind of re-imaging myself, and I'm going to have to do some spec work.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to be able to have a camera, so it was like one of those things. Like I'm just going to bet on myself. I took a loan out and I bought a ton of stuff, and that was just like hoping and prayer
this
that
works.
like my career pivots in the direction I wanted to go to, and I worked really hard on all the connections that I had before I went freelance, and just I don't know. I honestly, if you could ask me how I wound up where I'm at right now, I have no idea. It just like one little thing happened after another,
Just kinda
and we
spiraled
just spiraled, and maybe it's the way that we make films. I don't know. I always have a great time on set. It's sometimes wild to think at the end of the day, even if you're exhausted, like, holy shit, I got to do that for a living.
Yeah.
Like, right, we're making livings with cameras. It's so surreal
pretty wild
sometimes.
sometimes.
It's pretty wild,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you
Right.
make a big purchase because you've made good money. You're like, I bought my first house. I remember, I think it wasn't Natalie, my buddy Greg walked up. I bought my first house and I'm like, no furniture's in it, nothing. I just gotten the keys and I just signed on it. And he comes over to look at it and I'm just like sitting in the middle of the floor. Like, how in the world did this happen? How did we arrive here? Yeah. And it was by doing something you love doing, right? It does not feel like work. Yeah. I feel like when I have these breaks, I get itchy to go back and create.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Like, I don't know what to do. I'm stir crazy. I could work all the time, non-stop, which is a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that my wife tells me all the time the same thing, that you don't stop. I mean, you are jumping from project and you have this free time and you start editing something or you start let's do a podcast, let's do a YouTube, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how we're sitting here. I told you about a podcast that I was like, I'd love to like have a guest on where we talk about one frame of their work or like a project and we just draw all over the image of like, how did you get here? Right. And my brain never turns off in that way. I wake up thinking about creating art and I think about it when I'm going to sleep. It's a bad thing.
I think as creative people, we're just never satisfied or satiated. Yeah, exactly. We always are curious about trying and pursuing something. And it's not like giving up something. It's just we're naturally curious about trying a lot of things because we're creative, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think the big thing for this year is I've recently looked at some of the movies we make currently or commercials that we make currently and stuff, and it's weird. I don't think they're going to stand the test of time. Whereas we go back and we watch stuff. I was watching. I think I recently just watched The Burbs, which was a Tom Hanks movie, and I watched The Faculty, which was a Robert Rodriguez movie, and they hold. Yeah, they're still great. You can watch them 15 years later, right? Yeah. And my nephew, who's 10 years old, watched The Faculty and loved it. Right? I don't know if some of the movies we make right now, now don't get me wrong, I'm going to get hate for this, but like some of the Marvel movies we make, they're just getting over the top. We're like, are you going to watch this 20 years from now and like show your kids like this was the films that like crafted my creative life? No.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was at home, I get home sometimes and I have my daughter with me and everything. And the first thing I play is let's watch a movie and put Terminator 2. The Judgment Day, or it's one of those, so good. Right? It's like so it's one of those movies that I'm gonna get 90 years old and I'm gonna still watch that thing.
It does what I said earlier. You don't pay attention to all the goofs because it's such a good story. If you go back into that, I mess with everybody on this because I rode motorcycles growing up for a living. When he is escaping the parking garage on his motorcycle. Wrong engine sound for the bike. It's a 4-stroke. They 2-stroke dub it. And also it has like 16 gears. He changes gears 16 times running away from the truck.
That's amazing.
It's a 5-speed, right? You're going to click up 5 times and then there is no more, right? But sound plays so big into the way you feel the chase, right? So clicking 16 gears feels, more intense where it's like,
Oh my God, I love that you know that. That's awesome.
There's so many little things in that.
My friend was interviewed for a micro, I won't mention who shot this, but was interviewed for something having to do with fishing. And he was snorkeling and they have scuba sounds to it. And I mean, I'm a scuba diver, so I died. I was like, there's no way, everyone, like who wouldn't catch that?
Nobody does. Sometimes people don't even catch the most blatant ones, like Mission Impossible. I think it's like 3 or something like that. He's riding a street motorcycle through some cliff thing, and it has knobby tires on it. It's like a Ducati, right? And it's got knobby tires. They obviously custom made these wheels so they can have grip riding through this. And there's a scene where it like comes over the top of the camera, and it is straight up just like huge knobby tires. It's not slicks. Wow. And then all of a sudden he's back on, and there's slicks on the bike, and you're just
like, wait, what?
Wait, what? No one notices, right? Or the amount of like bullets that get shot out of a gun. Yeah, that's a 6-shooter. You're on round 9 there, right? For the shotguns, the double barrel shotgun, you got 4 shots.
I think if I come back again in another life, I would want to be a Foley artist.
No,
I think that would be real fun.
That'd be cool. I was curious to go back gear-wise because I'm a gearhead as well, but why the switch to the Venice 2? And obviously it's a great camera, but I'm curious on your thought process there on how you decided and wanted to jump up.
I'm a gear nerd too, honestly, but I am. We all are as cinematographers, right? It's just part of the game. I chilled out on it not too long ago because it's, like I said, they're just tools. Yeah. I do want to have a base for certain things. Like I remember my first set of true cinema glass I bought. It needs to make sense for me. It's not like the highest quality. Like it's the Tokina Vista Primes. They're great. Price, they look fantastic for me. They offered a 1.5 across the board, even on an 18 millimeter. There's not a lot of distortion, but they don't break the bank, right? They're not going to be like a signature prime, which is like 70 grand a lens or whatever. Yes. Right? They're like 10 grand a lens, which is still a lot of cash. Yeah. But we're in, as you grow in your career, you do notice that cash is there, right? That's the one thing you learn when you start becoming a real professional and you are making a real career as a filmmaker, that this stuff costs money, right? If you were to rent it from a gear house, they're going to charge you for it. Yeah. So my thought process was, I'm going to stop giving money to the rental houses on the camera side, at least, right? Yeah. So, I just kind of did the sheer math on it. And I was like, well, I own my FX9. So even if I don't work the Venice at all, I can pay for it every month with getting my FX9 on jobs. Yeah. While I'm trying to talk people into like, hey, spend $2,000 instead of $5,000. But I think we're all in this world now where we understand quality, and I haven't had to argue with anybody about getting it
pushing
on set. Yeah. And it's, it's a beautiful camera. And at some point, right, an image is an image, and it's really hard to tell the difference in like an FX6, an FX9, a Venice, or, a mini LF. I feel like that's all in the talent of the filmmakers. Yeah. You can shoot on anything. It was kind of when Atlas first came out making these anamorphic lenses that are on a budget. I mean, they basically were wanting to give you the opportunity to shoot anamorphic, which was before that reserved for large budget stuff, right? And now you can rent a full set of those for $500 for the day. And now it's opened up the world of everybody being able to look into anamorphic. And it's just, gear is what it is, and I think it has to be the right gear for the right project. I own the Venice 2. There may be a project I don't shoot with it. I may rent a mini LF if that calls towards the project, right? Yeah, it was just one of those things where I had a relationship with Sony. They've done a couple interviews with me, and we've collaborated on a couple things, and in my mind, I had shot on all those larger cameras, and I was like, well, the mini LF, I'm a full frame guy, and we're going to have that argument over and over. Like, some people think I'm an idiot that I think that matters. And so when the Super 35 new Alexa came out, I was like, I just don't think that's going to be the camera for me. And Ari's great. It's one of my favorite camera brands, but it was I felt like limiting at the time. If I'm going to own it, I'm going to spend that kind of money, right? We're a Super 35 sensor. It's only 4K. Or your option is to do the Mini LF, which is a 10-year-old sensor. And it's just two sensors stacked, next to each other. Yeah. So I was like, if we're going to own something, why would I invest in, 10-year-old technology? Which,
that makes sense.
Ari's great. So even 10-year-old technology is still it's still beating the Venice. It's still at the forefront of how many things are shot on it. But the Venice is 8.6K, full frame sensor. And they're actually growing quite a bit. They're on a ton of movies. The new Avatar was shot on it.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that.
A lot of big movies are actually now being shot on. I think The Boys, all the seasons were on the Venice 1. So I tested the camera. I was like, man, this thing is fantastic. So, I was like, I just have to have it for what I want to shoot on, right?
I need it.
You didn't need it. But
no, it's funny. FX9 still makes it out on stuff. Which, this commercial we're going to talk about, was shot on an FX9.
Welcome. Everyone have a seat. Go ahead and take your shoes off. We're going to get nice and comfortable.
Hey. My God. You want a phone cable? I'm good. Yeah, thanks. Babe, I love you so much. I hope you know that, okay? It's happening.
Take a deep breath. Not my stink.
Oh my God, it's coming out of me like lava.
What? That's nasty. Oh, hell no. Hit the flex.
Okay. Here, take one of these. This isn't the normal glass.
Need a breath of fresh air?
It's better.
Own the air you breathe with Active Pure. Designed to neutralize contaminants in the air in real time by eliminating up to 99.99% of pathogens.
That's right.
Those sound like good odds.
Enchiladas, man. I'm so sorry.
We needed to push budget in different places. So I don't even think the FX9 was paid for on the shoot, because we were on so many different sets, so many talents, so much.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
It was a huge crew.
Yeah, how many scenarios was that commercial?
Well, it wasn't even the scenarios. We had so many deliverables that had to come out of it as well.
Yeah, it was. We had lots of videos that had to come out of it, aside from just the scenes from the comedy video. Yeah. We had several other videos, and I was trying to navigate. I try to be really thoughtful and mindful with budgets and making the most of time and location. And so I was trying to navigate a way to get multiple scenes out of one location, especially if we're at a house. It's really easy to do that. Yeah. And so I think all in all, that shoot for that probably took a day and a half or 2 days.
No, we shot 2 full days on that. And
but I think that was combined with stuff that we did for the other videos as well.
I can't remember.
But yeah,
I know
it was
we did
about
3
2
full
days
days. There was a prep
production.
day, 2 full days, 2 very long days, multiple locations. It was a lot. We were able to do quite a bit of it in the house. The house that like everyone shoots at. It's like I don't even know how
in
those
East
people.
Austin, yeah.
I don't even know how those people live in that thing. I've shot at it like 6 times.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm
I've shot a lot
shooting
of
at it
stuff there.
again in next month.
Really?
It's one of those locations.
Yeah.
But
I'm
we
shooting
make
like a
it
grocery
look
store
different
commercial
every
there.
time.
Yeah, we did. And it's funny, Natalie pushes stuff so far where there's like a
Be more specific.
It's like a diarrhea scene in it. What do we want to call it? Like a guy who's using the bathroom.
No,
And
that's
like
great.
for a commercial piece, you're just like, is this gonna, where's this gonna land?
Yeah.
It's
but that's
hilarious.
where you decide if sound is valuable.
Yeah. Because like the commercial is about this air purifier, and that's all the whole piece starts off. Like Kelsey Probilski, who we work with a ton, she's a talented actress. She's like in this bathtub, and she's like, turning off the water and pouring a glass of wine, and then her husband comes in, and he's got to use the bathroom really bad. And funny enough, that was one of the more difficult things to shoot, but it just wound up playing in our favor because the house was kind of under construction a little
And
bit.
the toilet was
The toilet
movable.
was movable. It wasn't
movable?
attached to the ground. It was just there.
So we could put
so
it
we
where
could
we wanted
put it
it.
next to the.
What?
We put it next to the tub, which that would never happen. You would never have a toilet near the vanity and the tub.
That's not true. In old houses,
It's
definitely
between
like
the
that.
vanity. Like you can't even get to the one sink because it's in the way, right? Like it's not going to be there. And the space is tiny. I think I shot that from the little dugout that is supposed to be where the toilet goes. And, and Kelsey, I don't even know what she was wearing. I think it was a bathing suit. But we had to like fill the bathtub with like this
bubbles.
milk.
Yeah.
But we also poured like a whole 2 gallon of like whole milk in there to help cloud it up so that
She was
you
getting-
can't see her.
Getting very cold in there very fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's one of my favorite parts in the like commercial. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
The enchiladas at the end gets
Yeah.
me every
Oh,
Yeah, that was great too.
What about the location that has like a huge windows?
Yeah, the yoga scene.
The yoga
Is that what
scene?
you're talking
Yeah,
about?
there's
I love
another
That was a big day.
another Pure Space location. I
Yeah.
think I don't know if y'all have used.
It was
Pure Space.
actually
Yeah,
it was
that's
someone's dining room. Traditionally, there's a
Yeah.
table, like a
I-
long dining table that's in that room.
I knew the vision that I had wanted for a yoga location. and it feeling very open and seeing into the outside.
Yeah.
And I had scouted a couple locations, but it was during COVID, and so some people were still weird about filming, especially with that size of crew.
Yeah.
And that scene had a lot of talent in it too. So there's a lot of bodies on set.
Well,
but-
we once again it had to serve multiple things. Like we shot other things in that house
right.
as well.
We shot some other
shot a lot of stuff
little
in that
scenes for the
house.
other videos in that same house.
Yeah.
But
So that was big because we also didn't get a true tech scout day for that, and I was really busy at the time, and Natalie was too, and so we didn't even get to go visit those locations together.
Wow.
I remember she wound up sending me all these images, and I was like, here's the only way we're gonna be able to do it because our schedules just were not aligning. And I knew that we have this like telepathic way of just like kind of understands, like just check them out, send me pictures. And I remember not being able to have any like kind of pre-light stuff with Keaton either. And Natalie would take these images and I would just tell her like, take one, this, and then I wound up just like drawing all over them on my iPad, and I just airdropped them to Keaton, so he would be pre-lighting the next thing while we were shooting the other thing, and he was going pure and simply off these, just pictures that I'm just like drawing, and they're just crap. They're just,
Is that part of your process?
It's become a part of my process. Like it helps save time. Like not always do I do it, but when we have crazy schedules, like especially March is always like a really busy one because people do South by stuff and like big artists coming to town and everyone. I mean, March 5th through the 10th, I'm pre-light shoot, pre-light shoot. So it's all in 1 week. And so for some of those, people aren't here and they can't have time to come look at stuff. So it's been a good utensil. It's at least with gaffers. Now, I still have to kind of give them a little more direction when we get there, but it is kind of a nice tool that they can see
Give
where
a good
I
baseline
want
and then
fixtures, because, we backlit the yoga instructor with an M18, and we wound up having to, like, pancake that thing into a tree outside just so you couldn't see it.
Okay.
Because turning that into a yoga studio was quite a bit. I mean, fortunately, I'm a big believer that art direction is everything.
Oh,
that scene doesn't look the same without our really talented art director.
Chelsea Corman.
It was dressed
she
really
was
well,
amazing.
looked great.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks,
She
She's
transforms
amazing.
so many things.
Yeah, she's very
It's
talented.
crazy how important that is, right? It's like cinematography and direction. There's so many things that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
And once on set, if there's no one taking care of that aspect, it's like it doesn't matter how.
Right. I think, and that what I always speak to is when you're asking one person to do more than one role, like they're having to split their brain.
Yeah.
And especially for videographers that are producing, writing, directing, editing, all the things, it's like, yeah, one person is capable of doing that. And we've all done that early in our career. But that means I can't give 100% to writing or to directing. If I'm also having to art direct, like it's not going to come out the way you want because I don't have that. I'm one human,
It's the way to start your career. I mean, you even
Sure.
look at Christopher Nolan talk about his first film, like right out of college. They were a really small, robust team, but they shot it over the course of a year. Just like one day here, one day there with this like small crew. So look at what he's turned into now. It's a way to get your foot in the door. Because I ultimately think the way you wind up working with people is how you tell these stories, and they're these little ripples you make, and just like you never know how far they travel. So just always make sure that you're making this like really beautiful thing. And like we're talking about a commercial that we shot 2 years ago. We've done a ton of work since then, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that it holds. It's still it's like a really nice looking piece, and it's dated 2 years.
Well, and we want to be proud of the work that we put out. And at least the projects that I work on, speaking to intentionality, I don't want my sets to feel staged. I want it to feel lived in. I want it to feel messy and homey and organic.
Yeah.
And that's really where great art directors come in and can make it feel like that, because it's really hard to do that as one person.
100%.
They're the fine line between good and great, in my opinion.
For sure.
Like sometimes we don't have them on certain projects, and we just shot
You can feel it.
We just shot. It was a good budget, but we shot it was a grocery store commercial, and the director. He came back to me and was like asking about a few little things. I was like, I think it's a really, really good spot. I'm really proud of it. It looks really great. But we didn't have an art director. And so our character doesn't really pop from the background because we were very limited in what we could do. You know, I don't know what anything's going to look like going into it. We didn't have one, so I wasn't able to talk about what we could and couldn't do. Then we get there, and they have these grocery racks in the back, and they're black racks. And then we casted an African-American, and he's wearing a navy shirt. So it's just lots of dark layers. And then we didn't even, you know, look at how we were putting food into the shelves. Like, what are the colors of the boxes? You know, what color of shirt is the person wearing that you're talking to? What ethnicity are they? Like, how color contrast of everything play into all of it. And we didn't address it. And so nothing really pops. We have depth in the warehouse space, but the colors don't pop between each other, which is when we get into stuff like this. I mean, Chelsea just made tiny layers everywhere. I mean, we could fold the set in over and over and over for tight shots, and it played every shot.
I love working with David because he has a thoughtfulness, and a lot of people in filmmaking, I think, are afraid to work with women, especially in a leadership position, being a director or producer. David works with a lot of women, and he grew up with a lot of strong women in his life, and he's not afraid to be bossed around by women. But I am very curious to hear from you. In an instance like that, like, I would have been on top of that just because I'm a woman and I have an eye for color and those things. Like, I would be immediately moving stuff around if I didn't have an art director. Yeah. And I'm curious if you found that with other female directors versus male directors. If you don't have those extra resources that you need, like an art director, have you found a difference in the male director versus female director perspective and stuff like that?
It's like a weird, touchy subject, so you don't know where to talk on it because I love working with female directors, but what that female director has done to be at like working on all those things, like she's a bad bitch, right? Like Natalie's super talented. I mean, I work with a lot of females. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I work with so many ladies. I've worked on a project with Danielle Kolodny, right? She's also like a no mess around, like really talented woman. And, you know, I respect the hierarchy of the piece, right? I don't care what your, you know, gender or ethnicity or whatever it is, right? You're a role. Right. So what Natalie says goes. And like I said, that's also what I'm there for. Right. I don't want to half direct something or a quarter direct something. Like, I'm not a director. Like, I'm just going to listen to what she says and then I'm going to focus on my job skill. But I do work with a lot of ladies and they're all they're all boss babes. All of them are, actually. You know what? I mean, even the one that doesn't act like she is, Jen Barkhill. Like, she's this lovey-dovey, like, the best hugs in the world. You know, but she's also, I mean, you know, as sweet as she is, she still has, like, this level of just, like, no mess around, right?
Yeah.
Crack the whip if she needs to.
And then I don't know if that's just because I've worked with a few female directors and then it just spiraled. But, yeah, I've worked with a ton of them. And they're all extremely. Austin has a really good like group of female directors here. What's funny is I don't even know some of them at the time. Like your friend Haley, who was our wind on our piece.
Climate change short.
I just thought she was an actress, and then all of a sudden, you know, like 2 years goes by, and she's got like a film in South by that she directed.
Wow,
and wrote,
awesome.
And wrote, and looks fantastic.
She's at Fallout every Thursday performing too, I think.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. So many talents inside all that. Like Natalie writes, directs. She produces a lot of the shows too. But that's funny where the producer thing kind of gets like lost in the middle there. Like everybody does a little bit of producing, but Natalie does a lot of producing. Actually I'm line producing a project right now from a company out of Los Angeles. They like hit me like, oh, what can you bid out like a crew in Texas? Next thing I know, I've just line produced an entire commercial. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? How did we get here? I'm gonna have to build in a line item.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no. Back to your question. I mean, I love working with talented females. They're much more fun sets, honestly. They're more laid back.
They're very fun. My sets are very fun.
Yeah, they're more laid back. I feel like you get a bunch of dudes on set, and we're all just like.
I think from this shoot actually, because it was when we were shooting the yoga scene. There's BTS video of David and I line dancing.
Really?
In between scenes.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then also, I guess I wound up working with male directors that are just more laid back and fun too, as well. Like I work a lot with Cesar Velasco, super nice human, like just the most chill. I'm gonna do a tequila spec piece with him, and I didn't even have to think twice about it. He's like, hey, we have no money. Let's make something cool. I was like,
Cool.
yes.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
awesome.
we had him as directing a piece for a headphones commercial
Yeah.
at the studio.
Super talented guy.
I love the dude. I love it. I
Love
him.
Cesar. We hang out outside of film.
He's actually writing a few things because he told me if you need like copywriting or whatever, that's fun for me. Like,
Yeah.
and he does it like 2 days later. He got me
Yeah.
a copy for a 90 seconds video.
We actually, I don't know if they're ever going to see the light of day, but a project I'm super proud of. We wound up shooting these three little commercial pieces for an Austin-based brand that had no budget. I mean, they had budget, but for what we were doing, like we were shooting 3 proper commercial pieces, and we barely had 5 figures. And I come to Cesar and I was like, what are we gonna do here? Like, this is normally where I would cut a director out because I just don't have the money for it. He's like, oh, I got it. He actually wound up directing and editing them. They are amazing. And it turns out the product isn't real yet, so they're using it to pitch to like Whole Foods and all these big places.
Yeah.
And so I haven't been able to share them, but they are fantastic. And it was just him, myself, an AC, and a gaffer, and the gaffer did not have a grip, so I'm just like lugging lights all over the place. And we used one location for 3 different spots, like a pool scene, like a dinner scene, and then like a kids getting ready in the morning thing, and yeah, it just worked. And so I can't wait for hopefully those products to be out in the wild and we can share that.
You mean like this ad that never made it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This didn't make it out?
No, they wound up not actually producing these products. Like they
For
were
consumer. They
Yeah, so
only
they're-
did
Okay.
direct to business before,
Yeah.
and this was specifically
Really?
direct
So-
to consumer.
huge company. They
gosh.
actually make all of the air purifiers that go in the HVAC systems at like Cowboy Stadium and stuff. So it's a huge company. And they were at the time like, we're going to compete with Molecule and make these direct to consumer products. So they had the products that were in this don't work. There's no insides to them. And we got them the night before the shoot.
The prototypes.
The prototypes.
gosh.
Right. So they were always in prototype stage. Fully funded project. Right. Everybody had paid. It went all the way
Yeah.
through. The piece is done. And then they just stopped.
Wow.
And never made the products. So yeah, it's a full commercial about something that never
Doesn't
existed.
exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Let's just take a look at it.
Oh God, that shot. That shot is on a gimbal on
This is
a bunch of
FX9.
Apple Box. Yeah. So many of these things are the way we shot them. Just like, oh my gosh.
Avery.
Oh yeah.
He was committed to that too. He was in an actual hot car and
Where-
did not want air because
Yeah.
he wanted to look sick.
Well, the worst part about it is that dude's not in the back seat. I'm back there,
Right.
and Avery's just coughing all over me, like throwing tissues at me, and we are so sweaty.
Robin, love her.
Oh yeah, she's so talented. Her improv on that scene was fantastic. I
saw-
love you just
I
yelling
found
stuff at her to like
BTS.
say.
I found that
This is
BTS
amazing.
yesterday.
So good.
Oh yeah, and Tony's car that he let us borrow and shoot in front of his house.
How are you holding the camera in the back seat? Like, what?
It's on a hi hat, so we have it's on a fluid head on a hi hat with sandbags everywhere, and so I just would break the head loose and kind of get what I wanted, and we shot on the Tokinas on this, and it's actually I believe on a 25 mil, maybe on a, no, it's on a 25 mil. I didn't want it to
You
look
stayed on that
too
the whole time?
in the car. Yeah, so
okay.
same thing, right? I'm also on the reverse shot of the guy in the back seat.
Yeah.
The hi hat is in the
In the
front
dra-
seat,
okay.
and we would just stack up Apple boxes and then just take a motorcycle strap and kind of crank it and put some sandbags.
sand.
I actually have a picture somewhere of that rig. It was great.
It was very crammed in that backseat.
Yeah.
And it was no air conditioning.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because we recorded all the real sound too. So it's like Avery's mic'd up,
cool.
and so we didn't do any of it in post. It was all.
He was method acting, so David was also method filming.
Well, what's funny is his character, how he originally was supposed to play that, of what his accent and everything, he built up for it, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then also we're like, we've got to tone this down.
Yeah.
And he wound up just being Avery.
Yes.
As far as the wide and that the yoga scene. Can you break down the kind of what you did there as far as
lighting wise or camera wise?
Lighting wise. Yeah, that you said you had an M18 in the back, and then
I have to look at the
if you
image
remember.
again to see.
Yeah,
I do remember it was an M18 that we basically like
Said tuck
clamped onto.
What makes the
tree
we had a
branch.
smoke machine. Is that what made the glow?
No, well, yeah. I mean, we had a little bit of
haze
haze in
going.
there, but not a ton. I didn't want it to feel because you can get really carried away with haze really fast.
Yeah.
That shot is hilarious because it is literally on an R2 because we didn't have the time in the day to take it off and put it back on. So I couldn't put it on sticks, so we would just stack apple boxes. So I got it at the height I wanted. And Brooks is pulling focus, and I'm actually on the R2 controls and following, between the shots.
That was the foot sliding over. Is that,
Yeah,
is that
it took
the
us,
shot?
I think, like 6 times to get that. And then once we tried it once, we go, this is the movement we want. So we were dedicated to making it happen. And I'm not a gimbal op, right? So I'm like trying
That
to
was
figure
the
out how to get that shot to work right. And getting it to land perfectly was so difficult because I don't run sticks on an R2 controller.
Yeah.
So
What about here? Do you have a light outside?
yeah, so if you see the treehouse there, right above the treehouse is a big.
That's an M18 you said?
Oh,
I think it's an
see.
M18. It may be something larger. I can't remember. I think it's an M18.
You have haze on the
Yeah,
room.
we have some haze in there, and then camera right here. Well, on the frame right, it's just a massive wall of neg. So I think it's like
It was a
12
big-
foot by 20 foot because the other side is full of windows.
It was a
It's a
really big
kitchen.
neg.
Bring everything down.
Right, so it's like a kitchen island and all this stuff, and so huge windows, and the sun, believe it or not, is actually coming through those windows, so they would just like side lit all of them.
Yeah.
So we killed that entire thing, and then there's a couple of, just for fill on their shadow side, we added a couple tubes, and then there are a couple tubes in the top.
Yeah, I can see on his back there. There's
Yeah.
maybe a little something above.
And then we had some backlight back there, and then we had a couple. I think it's an S60 outside to kind of help bring them up because, like I said, you can see that the sun is it's broad daylight, but you're not going to get a lot of that on them because the sun's actually coming from the other side.
Yeah.
So we put an S60 out there and kind of flagged it off to where it's not going to spill all over the window, but it would hit
Just
that,
kind of bring up the room in
bring up the room in general.
Yeah.
So, and then we would just fold the set in on itself kind of constantly. I remember when we do some of the tighter shots of Robin, we would have like a
walk
4
everything
by,
in or something.
just like fill on a duckbill. And
Yeah, I
things
love
like that.
how intimate it looks. Like it
Yeah.
looks
Yeah,
like
go back
a
to the set, this art direction and everything.
Yeah.
It's just like everything. It
Yeah.
looks the feel and the vibe of everything. Is so
I love
good.
that shot.
But it is
totally.
interesting to David's point, when it looks seamless, but especially when you're on a time crunch of a schedule and trying to shoot a lot of scenes in one day, you do have to move lighting around in between those tight shots and those wide shots, and that takes a lot of time,
Yeah,
even
they're
when they're like,
fine-tuned.
it's going to take me 5 minutes.
Well,
no, it
It
doesn't.
never does.
That's
It never
kind of
does,
how I
yeah.
approach, at this point in my career, that's kind of how I approach, my lighting. I always want to build a master. So I'm like never thinking about one shot in particular. I'm thinking of like, if I were to just back completely out of this room for like a master wide, how are we lighting that? Like I want this ultra wide shot, and then I'll just fold everything kind of on micro adjustments, right? Because even when we folded that room in, we didn't fold any lights in. I think we had one extra tube, and then, like I said, like a 4 by just like soft bounce, just like it was just a beadboard on a duckbill, and we would just do that. And it was made just getting all the shots after that so much easier because we had done like a master light, and so we do that on all these things.
Makes sense.
And it just saves a ton of time. So
It does, except for if you forget something
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you want to get a pickup shot,
Yeah.
and then you all of a
gotta
sudden have to change
Pull
everything
everything
again.
back and
Yeah.
reset. Yeah.
Which I've also let go of some of the insert shots. I don't stress over insert shots as much anymore. I kind of let them be what they are, right? They don't have to be so meticulous. They live for a half a second.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the insert shots.
I mean, I love them too. I'm more there to service the overall project. So it's like, I'm not going to freak out if it's not exactly how I want it. It's like, it's a half second insert shot. As long as it looks great
Close.
as an overall part
Yeah.
of this, right? So,
What about the bathroom scene? How did you go? What was your approach to lighting that?
oh man, that one was difficult.
He's
We have
hilarious.
no.
I like the blue from the curtain, and
We have no space in there. Like, you
yeah,
have,
it's
like
pretty
if,
tight. Like,
It's very short ceiling.
So
as well.
if you
it's a
back
great freeze frame. That's amazing.
if you back it up, you can see the door that I'm in shooting this shot. So like to get that shot, we just got lucky because as he walks in, there's like the little restroom that's going to house that toilet when they get done remodeling. And I'm in there with a tripod shooting that reverse shot. Yeah, so you can see the wooden door to his right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in
And
there
you were in there
filming
for the other-
this
Gotcha,
shot.
gotcha.
And what's funny is that shot, we're also on a hi-hat because we couldn't get sticks in. So I have a hi-hat on the counter with the fluid head to get him coming by. And it's basically lit with a ton of cartellinis and tubes.
Gotcha.
I mean, we've got, and then Keaton, he's fantastic gaffer. He had everything on blackout. So we had, there was weirdly enough, there's like these wooden rafters kind of that were randomly in this almost like, it was a weird bathroom. So we had these wooden beams up there that were kind of all like they didn't even come to an apex, and we just Cardellini clipped, some
So
tubes.
how lucky,
tubes.
because you actually see
Like there's tile in the ceiling. I was about to say it, and I was like, I don't want
yeah.
to sound like an idiot because it wasn't. There's obviously not tile in the ceiling, but that's how I remembered it. Yeah, the ceiling was tiled, and so those wouldn't be. It was a really weird bathroom, and so we made the best of it. And like I said, we had to get everything out there because we have to use the entire space. So I can't have anything on the ground. And so yeah, it's all clipped in the ceiling, and it's just there's like 4 of them, and they're all and they have like little soft boxes on them and different things. They're all aimed different directions.
I'm pretty sure when we walked into that bathroom and you actually finally got to see it for the first time, you were like,
I panicked.
oh,
Yeah.
How are we gonna light this?
okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like I said, your career is this accumulation of all the hardships you've had.
Yeah.
Because we can't see any lighting anywhere, and I have to use all the real estate in this. So fast forward, a year and a half later, I got hired to do a one-take music video in Mexico, and we had to be able to shoot 360 degrees in this massive bar. So I can't have any stands. I can't have any C-stands, right? And so I was like, cool, I've done this before, right? We're just going to hang them in the ceiling. So we had 36 fixtures around. 36 fixtures bolted into the ceiling and on different parts of this bar to do this one-take music video.
Wow.
And this is kind of where I was like, cool, we can do a lot of different things rigging wise, because I only had a gaffer on that one so I also just kind of key ripped that project. But this is my first time where I was like, cool, we're just gonna make whatever work, and so it resurfaces.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Kelsey.
That's great. What about the car scene here? How'd you go about lighting that?
Those are a couple. I think we have an S60 shot.
Just
There's some,
outside.
I think some A-by diffusion frames outside, and
just
then
really big diffusion
we folded in. There's like a tube. There's like a smaller tube in the passenger. It's kind of like tucked in there, and then Keaton kind of diaper wrapped some. I think it's like half grid or something over it, and just kind of softening that stuff up. So, because we couldn't do a lot of like negative fill and a lot of things because we shot such wide shots all the time. So I think it got really lucky with just the way when we planned to do it. Obviously, we looked at the street and where the sun would be and what direction we would park the car and how we'd face it. And we knew we needed to see street behind, Avery, and we needed to see house behind our backseat character. So we had to basically find a spot where we could park it and what time of day to make all those things
We
play.
parked it in the yard, I think.
Well, yeah, we got lucky. So it's in the front yard at the time. Because we did it, we did it in the
Pop
afternoon.
curb.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So you as a director, what is the one thing that you cannot miss on set, like that you have to do it? Like either you bring it or someone else can provide it to you.
Oh gosh, a good attitude. I don't know. I don't know.
That counts.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
counts.
Yeah.
if you're gonna be shitty on my set, don't bother showing up. I mean, really.
Yeah.
But oh gosh, I don't know. That's a good question. Aside from a good attitude and good food, I'm like,
Sounds
A
like
good
a-
attitude goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
When you're doing a long
100%.
day
Good
and
food
your
goes a
people
long way,
around
too.
you complaining all day, it just like
That
makes you
It
feel
brings
heavy.
everything down. Yeah.
well, and it's especially when it's someone like a DP that you have to work closely with, like if they're in a bad mood or in a bad attitude, like that's not, we're the leaders of that entire set, and it's not helpful for anyone else underneath us to like see us stressed out. Same as the client situation I was talking about earlier. And I think at the end of the day, like I want people to leave wanting to work with me again. And so I at least have to show up like that, but I absorb energy around me. And so if other people are being negative or stressing me out or stressed out, that will stress me out. So it's really important for me to be surrounded by creative, positive people and create a collaborative work environment. Like David was saying, I'm not the end game necessarily on the set. Like I am the leader and I wrote and directed something, but that doesn't mean I'm the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, you lose one person, you lose the whole project, right?
Right.
Everybody plays a very serious role.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I always say that's like one of the things as a DP. I feel like I'm this like weird line between everybody above the line and everybody below the line. And you can make pretty images all day, but if no one wants to work for you,
100%.
I mean, down to the PAs. Like PAs are so
like you'll
important.
still find me every time I'm on set. I like will eat at the grip truck. Like I very much consider myself a part of the below the line crew. Right? Like those are the people I'm talking to the most in pre-production. Like Natalie and I'll do a lot of planning, but you know, when sourcing all those guys, like all those people I'm kind of giving all of them the direction once we're there, because I remove Natalie from that so she can focus on what she's doing. So it's like all those people are kind of trickled down underneath my wing. And so
Well, I've also only worked on one union set before, and I didn't like that. Because I am a doer. I am a hands-on person. I'm going to help load this
that's
gear.
Not your role.
Right.
You can't touch that.
And Chelsea, that art director for this video, I was like pulling gear and helping grip, and David and everyone load and unload stuff. And she was like, I've never seen a director do this before. And I was like, what would I be? I would just be standing around.
Yeah.
What's like you just watch everyone else work. It's such
That
a
feels
weird
horrible.
feeling. Yeah.
And it's a weird moment in your career when all that stuff starts to happen, because you have to like back up from it. I remember the first time I worked with an AC, I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing, man? You're doing all the things I got to be doing. And you're like, no, this is, oh my gosh, I can focus now. So I still have some of that hard work stuff built into me. I think I work with an AC over and over and over, Josh Barber, and he constantly is like hand smacking me, you know.
It is nice to have the space held for you as a director and a DP, so you have the time. If I need to be focused on a scene or directing or writing and working with you, it is nice to have people in a crew facilitating that. But if I don't have something to work on in that moment, I don't want to stand by aimlessly.
Well, it gets weird too, because it starts to make you focus in on a certain thing. I like felt somewhat idiotic not too long ago. I was on just like a regular, we're just shooting an interview, and it's like my fourth project on the Venice, and I realize I have not really touched the camera. Like it has an AC side to the camera. So when I'm opping and DPing, like I don't even change anything. Josh does. And we have run stop on it. So he digitally changes it. And so we get there and we had the internal mic turned on, and I'm trying to plug in, and just do sound myself, like a super low budget just interview. And I'm trying to plug some G4s into it. And I don't know how to get the internal mic turned to the XLR ports. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I should know how to do it. I'm like YouTubing it. And I had to FaceTime Josh to like have him do it for me. It's like, what in the world? But that's also like the luxury part of it, where I did a cam mopping job not too long ago, and I'm like carrying all my stuff up the elevator. I was like, this sucks.
I mean, there definitely are instances like that. I had someone, on that film I was doing recently in Big Bend, someone was borrowing my stills camera to shoot time lapses, and they went and changed a bunch of settings.
Oh my
I'm like,
oh no,
I don't know how this works anymore. What did you do?
You're so used to your workflow.
It's funny, like the larger the projects get, like the simpler things become, right? When you first start out, you're like on a DSLR, you worry about shutter speeds and ISO and all these things, and then you hop into these like hundreds of thousands of dollars of camera and equipment, and there is nothing to do on it, right? It's like, here's your base ISO. This is the ISO you should shoot at, right? Like now some cameras you can definitely change them and you can do whatever you want to, but like, you know, on the Venice, it is 800 and 3200 are the two base ISOs. So we try to shoot on those, right? Yeah. We don't change the shutter speed. It's, you know, it's 180 degrees. And you don't, I mean, unless I want to change it, you know, to over crank or do some things like that. But for the run of the mill stuff we do, it's 23.98, 180 degrees, and like 800 ISO, right? So we're just not doing camera stuff. We're lighting around what the camera performs best at. So it starts dumbing all of it down, right? Where when you're starting, you're like trying to figure out like the exposure triangle and all these things. So you're like, it, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on? Because I've been in both sides, in the directing side and the DP side. I'm now more on the producer side, but I've been in a situation where I'm not a savvy DP. You know, I don't know the technical names and the technical language, right, to communicate what I want to a gaffer that has like 20 years in the industry or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? On what do you think? Is there any path to kind of understand or make you understand to the people that you have on set?
Yeah.
A lot of people want to shadow
like,
David.
Fake it till you make it type of deal, right? I don't know. I'm a weird creature where I read and watch a lot of stuff. Like I every morning when I wake up, I will make breakfast and I sit at my breakfast table and I watch an episode of Studio Binder, right? And there'll be like tiny excerpts of like, what is a villain or what is a story arc, and it's stuff that doesn't even, you know, sometimes pertain to what I do, but it's just like growing your film knowledge all the time. Yeah. And then there are people out there that will help you, right? I remember I had somebody that would have just like taken me underneath their wing and been like, this is how you do it. Right? It's all down to like, sometimes I'll try to do little nuggets where I think the funniest one is where you try to teach people how to call for apple boxes on set. Like, right, you can call for a size apple box, but then there's different ways to place it, like Chicago, New York, LA. Like, how do you want it set down? Yeah. And you have to like call for that. And so I do, you know, I'm big into education. I do love having, because there's no difference, right? Like some kid who's, you know, 16, he's like, I'd love to be on set. You have no idea what that kid's going to be one day. He could be the next Christopher Nolan or Greg Fraser or somebody. Like, if somebody reaches out to you to learn, you should 100% make an effort to pass that knowledge on, right? Like, I don't look at it as someone potentially taking work from me. I'm just looking at like, I'm going to get hired for what I do. You'll wind up getting hired for what you do. And I think that was the first start to my actual career. Is like, I think when I first started, I was like, I'm going to emulate this or emulate that, or I was really inspired by a piece and I would try to do it like they do. And I remember having that epiphany. I think I shot something like this, like, Instagram famous guy named Matt Como. He does all these wiping shots everywhere and stuff. And I was like, cool, this is what people are buying. This is what people want. And I tried to do that. And I was like, why in the world would I try to be like the second best at something someone's already known for? Yeah, exactly. And the second you find your visual language, like mine came from my architecture background. I mean, my AC makes fun of me all the time. I have grids on my monitor, and everything has to hit a point, and it builds perspective, and it helps me, you know, like easily find short side for a character or where I want things to place, and it's for my whole thing. So when I'm looking at a shot, things hit these points in this grid. I think I have like, you know, like 10 different spaces each way.
Interesting that you see things. That's cool. Because I do that audibly. Yeah. Like when I'm editing, or especially if I'm directing something with music, like certain camera movements or cuts lend itself musically how it's supposed to feel. So like knowing that timing is so important, and it's very similar in a very different way.
Well, it's just we all have something. You're going to fall back onto what you are internally anyways. Like, you can learn a lot of things from a lot of people, but I think you're either a filmmaker or you're not. Like, you can learn a lot of stuff, but you're just either naturally going to be a storyteller or you're not. There's people that can go around the campfire and you'll naturally see them rise and tell the best stories. And then everyone else kind of watches, right? So that's what separates storytellers and audience. Yeah. And so, you just kind of find the way you best tell a story. And that's the best success you're going to have, right? Because you're naturally just going to be yourself and do what you do. And so just be authentic to the stories you want to tell. And that's the best way to get anywhere. And then, I am trying to do opportunities for kids to come on set. I mean, it's kind of cool to watch them grow too. Like I have a little kid. Well, he's not that little of a kid anymore. I mean, his name's Carson. Carson, he came out and PA'd a couple times, and then he actually shot a couple frames in a music video I did not too long ago. I let him op cam, and he's cool. Was good at it. But he comes in and he works hard. He PAs, and then he just shadows because he wants to DP, and so it's just kind of cool to help share, because you don't know what people don't know, and you don't know how much you know, because there's not, like, no one's measuring you on set, right? They're there to do a job, so it's not like, oh, I know more than you do, or this person knows more than you do, right? You just, like, have your knowledge, and I'm not really ever worried about what anybody else does, as long as they do their job. And, so it's kind of funny to see how you can transfer this knowledge to younger kids, and I think it's really fun. I would love to have, almost like a learning shoots all the time, kind of like in Grey's Anatomy. I think it was like a learning hospital where there's always people shadowing. I mean, if we just made a lot of sets more.
You mean when you're in residency?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but they called it a learning hospital. I think.
Okay.
I think there was the verbiage
I don't know.
used on we're a learning hospital.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would love to have more learning sets.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That's a good
you
idea,
just and then just have kids be, because how else are you going to get on a larger set?
Yeah.
You're just going to work really, really hard until you get there, which is what most people do. But it'd be nice if you just shared more with everybody. Like, cool, we'll have someone come out and learn how to AC if that's what you want to. And the best way to do it is in a real set. And if you prepped well enough, like having somebody observe is not going to mess up your day, right? At that point, we should be pretty buttoned up.
I mean, for you, but it does take time to have to explain everything that you're doing.
Directing a little different, but I mean, most of the time it's more just like they say they come to set and then like you have like a follow-up day, like they could take notes or whatever they want to, and just observe. And then kind of circle back to like, why'd you do this or why'd you do that? Sometimes I don't know why we did that.
We had 5 minutes left to shoot it, and we shot it, so that's why.
Yeah. Turns out that's the way it looked back.
So our next question, not even question, it was what will be your advice to someone that it's wanting to start into this? Would that fall into that advice?
Get on set. Get on and offer things to people. I think that's the big thing. It's like if you're gonna ask someone if you can do something, like just come out of the gate offering something.
Yeah, that's good.
And do think about where your future, where you want it to go, and spend your time crafting towards that future. I'm also a little too into that, where I think more, I'm kind of like Natalie on some things, where I haven't joined the union yet, and I'm on that cusp of pulling the trigger on doing that. And I have a lot of people telling me join as an operator, because it's exponentially cheaper to join the union as an operator than a DP.
Why is that? I don't know.
I mean, right? There's a difference in like the line of what you're like. If you're just opping cam, you're not lighting, you're not doing anything. You're just operating camera, right? And a DP's talking to you in a headset of how he wants you to move the camera, which is cool. You get in the union, you meet a lot of people. But in my mind, if I go to a set and I start opping camera, next time they call me, they're not going to call me to DP. They're going to call me to operate camera. Yeah. So be intentional with what you want, right? Like find what it is you want to do, and then just go 100% for it. Yeah. Like may not be easy, but like I said, sometimes these people come out in PA, and now I build relationships with them. So like for Carson, like he started coming out and PAing, and now he's moved up because he's been intentional with talking to me about what he wants. So I'm cool. I may still hire him to PA, but I'm always in the back of my mind servicing where his future is going, like what he wants to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Versus some people just want to come out to set and they're not really clear on what they want to do. Like, I don't know. Are you more interested in AC or directing?
Well, that's how Josh Barber's path was. I think he was a gaffer first and then moved up to first AC.
It's funny because most people have a different path. Like Keaton wanted to be a DP. Like, and now he's like one of the best gaffers in town, but like you'll fall where you're supposed to fall because your natural interest. Like he just cares about lighting. It's funny because most of us can talk about films. Like he hasn't even watched movies.
Really?
No, he's seen nothing.
Really?
Literally, he's seen nothing. And it's so wild. He knows no quotes. He knows nothing, but he's one of the best gaffers. It's because he just cares about lighting.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with how it falls and how it looks and not pertain. And that's probably good too, right? He has a clean slate of what he wants.
It's good to not be influenced sometimes.
Yeah, he has zero influence on what he wants. It's and you know, he's very collaborative too. So, and he can make anything. It's kind of, I could show behind the scenes of the many rigs that this guy has made for me that you're just like, what in the world?
What is this?
We just shot a music video for Paul Wall and Hannibal Buress not too long ago, and I needed to Paul Wall, baby. Yeah, he had a grill in. It was awesome. I had a weird moment where Paul Wall's not huge, but super influential in my college grills and all that sitting sideways, and yeah, and so at a point in the thing we were taking a break, and I was like, "This is awesome." I just looked at him. I was like, "Dude, this is so awesome for me." I was like, I'm a huge Paul Wall fan. This is so awesome getting to work with you. And yeah, Keaton had to build this apparatus. I needed to figure out how to wipe a camera from the ground and back into the ground on the other side. And we needed it to be seamlessly. But it couldn't rainbow wipe. It needed to consistently go over and over, right?
And
to get
you're
the shot.
trying to figure this out on set, or are you talking
No,
about
we had pre-done it, but I kind of had a vision of how I wanted to do it. But Keaton's a rigger, and so I'm going to let him rig. So I didn't give him a lot other than I needed it to wipe, but I needed it to constantly wipe clockwise, right? It can't go down and back and this. Okay. So and I needed it to be mobile. I don't know where we're going to be on set, and it can't be cumbersome. So he wound up rigging this truss system to a scissor lift, and we just drove it right onto set.
What?
And then we just put two, 4x floppies and just kind of killed off this little space for the camera to wipe in and out of it. It just looks like the camera's coming in out of the ground. Wow. And he opted too. It's funny. I'm back at that was one of those white glove DP days for me. We had a steady cam op, and I'm just on headset talking. I'm at the monitor with the director, and so Keaton's just out there just spinning it, and it's we're doing it for an entire take of a song. So his arm's getting tired, and I was like, that pace, just keep it up, and he's like, I'm getting tired. I was like, no, it's 45 more seconds, keep it going. I think I sent John Rain a video, and I was like, look, Keaton's camera department today.
I can't wait to see that rig. Do you have any BTS photo?
Yeah,
we can throw it on screen or something to you later. But
I do.
What about you,
so cool.
Natalie? What will be your advice to someone that wants to jump into this?
I mean, similarly to what David said. I mean, when you're first starting out, of course, get on any set that you can. But I think when you're clear on what you want to be doing, whether that's wedding videography or commercials, or you want to work in Western, you need to create work in that space. If you want to just start pursuing that work, if you want to start getting noticed doing that work and get on those sets, you need to be doing that on your own time so that you can have that accessibility and have a proof of concept, basically. So that would be my advice.
And we all do it.
If you want to do it, do it.
Yeah, I think I made a spec piece a year and a half or 2 years ago where I directed it, DP'd it. It's a ton of work, but it was one of those things where anything I asked somebody to do, right, I've done it. I climbed up a 25-foot ladder and hung a 300D with a softbox from the rafters because I didn't have money, right? All the product shots are shot in my living room, and we used it to sell to, nutrition and athletic performance companies because I didn't have a piece at the time to fish with. It's what comes back to always have something to offer. Yeah. Right. I'm why would you trust me to make a fitness piece for you if I have no fitness work? Right. Exactly. So make the fitness work. That way you're always coming out of the gate with here's what I can offer you. Yeah. And that's the rig.
Yeah. And then to your question earlier. Yeah. People will start coming to you unsolicited based on the type of work that you've done because that's the type of work that they're looking for. Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, having work online matters.
Yeah.
Right.
It does.
It's
we live in a digital world.
How you present it, how you present yourself, it talks, right? More than having a Google ad out there or something like that, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
But
people
Instagram
pay attention to that
know.
stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Just down to the way you present yourself on set, even clothing wise, or the way you act, or the way you do it.
Oh yeah, am I fashionable on set?
You're always fashionable on set. to like, which is great. I mean, I sometimes I can't because like sometimes I op. Well, most of the times I op. I like to operate camera, and so I'm like always hot and sweaty. So I feel like I always get like the slim down version of being able to look good.
So the next part is you guys nominating someone to be in the hot chair here in the podcast. Do you have someone in mind?
A duo,
A director and cinematographer duo.
It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be a director and DP because Sinitra and Peter are combo package.
Yeah, husband and wife.
Husband and wife. She's a producer and he's a DP director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That could be cool too.
Mike Kozlenko and Corey Crumpacker are great.
We're working with Corey in a liquid commercial in New York.
Those two they team up pretty much nonstop.
Mike and Corey.
Yeah,
Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. They just wrapped up a very ambitious spec piece out on the virtual production wall.
Yeah.
I think Haley should definitely be here. Haley Erickson.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know who you'd pair her with. There's lots of people she works with, but
Yeah, and speaking of
very entertaining.
husband and wife combos, Joe Simon and his wife.
Yeah, I just worked with him on a project this week. He's great, and Katie. Yeah,
it's also like
Katie
how those people work on set. Joe's just a great. Like I don't get to work with him very often, or I never get to work with him because we do the same job. Yeah. But I've been to places and met him. He's just a super bubbly, just like
he's very kind,
right? And I like which de-ages him. I didn't even realize like how old he was. Like when he told me we were just chatting, I was like, because I feel like I'm an older DP, and I mean this dude's like riding one wheels all over the place with stuff, like doing a lot of opping on his own, right? Instead of having like a steady cam up, he's just like got all this crazy stuff, and he's like riding this like one wheel around. You're just like.
Yeah, he's
amazing.
Yeah, I know.
It's so good, right?
Killer. He got some great stuff.
Yeah, and I found out that his wife produces all, like, they have a company, The Delivery Man, and his wife produces almost all of the stuff they work on.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah,
it was my first time working with them this week, and they're both super cool and super sweet. And
I feel like we're really lucky in Austin. Austin has like a really great film scene, so it's hard when you go to other places. Because it's hard to replicate the talent that's here.
That's the problem that we're having right now with the project that I was mentioning before in New York. Because we're
trying to get bodies.
We're taking just Corey and Mike as the creative and visuals, but we're gonna have to hire locals over there. So it's kind of
I think that's. I mean, as someone that tries to be really environmentally friendly as well on all my sets, like I only bring essential crew with me when I'm traveling places. I prefer using local crews and supporting their city and their income and everything, like, and the environment.
Yeah, and Mike's a good traveling DP. I mean, he's very technical on what he wants. Like he calls for everything. I came up with him one time, and we work very differently. Like he knows exactly what he wants, and he sees it more in fixtures, right? Like you can back out, and I'm like more what I want light to do and how I want it. He's, calling for the exact fixture he wants, right? So that kind of works when you have to travel, right? Because his less collaboration with a gaffer, he's just like he knows
what he wants.
Sure.
Like I want this, and this light, and I mean he's just that's the way he works, and it looks beautiful. So
that's awesome.
Vinnie, do you have any other questions for them?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty. Let's see.
What'd you have for breakfast this morning?
Yeah. A couple protein bars. That was about it. Yeah.
Is there anything you guys would you like to say? Like,
I don't think so. It's great to work with you, David.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else coming up that you're looking forward to?
Well, I don't know. We were
about.
supposed to do, was it one a month of these acoustic videos that, I mean, she may work with other DPs. We both work with different people, so.
Ideally, we have stuff with Shane coming up. A few different things with Shane coming up. But, I mean, every time I talk to David, he's like, I really want to do something narrative soon. I'm like, well, I happen to have a few things that I'm working on. So the ideal scenario is that we can do a passion project soon that we're just stoked on that has nothing to do with getting paid or like work. It's just fun.
It's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
That was one question that I have narrative wise. Like where do you guys see yourself? Mainly like commercial world, or do you want to lean more into narrative down the road, or like where do you guys see your future going?
I mean, we both make our money in commercial work.
Yeah.
So it's like hard to
leave that.
Well, it's not hard to leave. It's just like you kind of get stuck in that a little bit because you get like I don't send cold emails to anybody. It's just like work constantly comes through the door of people reaching out. So it's and they reach out. Like I said, it all plays into like how you present yourself and what you're doing. Like you're gonna continue to be hit up for that. So like I like the commercial stuff, but I would like to tell longer form stories. I know Natalie is the same way. Like I can't help but watch movies and I can always find some amazing line thread. There are no bad movies in my mind. Like I just, something is great about all of them. And it's the difference in my wife and I watching a movie. We watched Bones and All, I think, with Timothy Chalamet. And
It was very pretty, but very weird.
it was weird, but it was amazing because I watched all the behind the scenes of how they shot this, and it was this really, really scrappy team that made a really beautiful film with not a lot of money. And they shot it on film, and it was one camera, which is how I like to shoot. I don't like having multiple cameras.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you have that moment live in the one camera.
Except for comedy. I think it is beneficial for comedy sometimes.
Which, we've shot a lot of comedies one camera.
We have, but that's a different conversation. I think you allow more improv when you can get those natural reactions the first time because they're not going to say it the same way a second time.
It's impossible.
So that's the goal.
That makes sense.
I think my future goal is moving into narrative. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. I'm just gonna like toss it up to the universe, and if that's where I wind up, that's where I wind up. But I'm definitely making moves and positioning myself in micro adjustments to wind up there.
And Natalie, do you think you're headed that direction as well, or?
I've been making moves in honing in the types of stuff I want to pursue, like Western music, outdoor, like just being very clear on that because I get stoked and my curiosity fired up by having different creative itches. Like I love writing comedy. It's one of my favorite things to do, but I also really love doing short documentaries outside. And I also love writing music videos. Like I don't think I could ever pursue just one path. Like I might be stoked on doing one thing at a certain time, but dabbling in different areas drives me creatively as a person and not being locked into just doing commercials or just doing XYZ. And so at the moment, it's still kind of those different avenues, but it's still very much honed in. Like I get offered stuff all the time that I just say no to because it doesn't fit within that vision. Yeah.
I definitely have to have a certain thing from a project in order to want to work on it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like it won't serve me at all. Like if I cut all this stuff down, like what am I actually putting out? It's just going to be a disservice to where you're trying to head. And that's fine, right? It just, I feel like getting very straight on what you want to do. But yeah, and as for that, like I said, I think I want to do longer stuff because I want to be more committed to a project. I want the camera movement and the way we do stuff to like play much longer emotional tones and stuff. Longer scenes can play out, and it's more based on how actors are playing in the scene you've built for them, right? Because you're essentially building a world for them to play in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that I would be doing feature-length stuff, but as I'm going through post-supervising this short film right now, and it's at 15 minutes, and I think at, after, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, it becomes a feature technically after 40. And as it keeps getting longer with every revision, I am more keenly aware of how nice it must be to actually have the time to spend on a story for a feature because I do love short form documentary storytelling, or short form narrative, but there's so much to say that you can't always say in a short amount of time.
10 minutes.
Right.
Well, and we're writing the book on the future of this stuff right now. Like the way we shoot features now does not have to be how we shoot features in the future. If you look at the course of history on anything, like we are the ones who get to choose how that's made. Yeah. I mean, Danny Gavertz is a YouTuber who just made his first feature that he wrote and directed and wound up getting the budget for it. I don't know if any of y'all know who he is, but he just made his first feature, and he was a YouTube guy. He was a high-end commercial DP, but he was sharing on YouTube how he was doing these things, behind the scenes type of stuff.
That's cool.
And he got really famous. I think he bunch of followers on YouTube, and he was just sharing how he was making music videos for people and stuff. And he got enough crowd that when he wrote his first feature, all of these people came out of the woodworks and funded this project, right? Wow. So he made a full feature that's in all the film circuits, and he did it non-union, right? He directed it. He hired a guy that he mentored as a cinematographer, wound up, being really great over the 3 years of them not working together, and he had him to DP it. And so, like I said, how that stuff works, you never really know. It's just as long as you're just like heading in that trajectory, because by the time you get to that level, they could be being done totally different. Lots of movies are being done really scrappy these days.
We love that word.
Yeah.
Scrappy. Yeah.
Have you shot on any of the LED walls yet?
Yes, that music video was on there, and we were actually shooting a Cadillac commercial out there in like 2 weeks.
Nice.
Cool. So it's a weird future. It's very different.
I've been in one, but I never shot on one. I'm like, I don't even know.
I don't know if it's like my future. I mean, it's gonna have to be. It's different, right? It's a whole different set of stuff. It's like taking everything you knew about lighting and micro adjusting it. Mm-hmm. Right? Same thing when you try to shoot green screen for your first time. It's like you don't light it the same way, right? There is such thing as spill, and it can be all over somebody. Where the LED walls come in, where now you take that spill away, but it is a void of light. Right? It is. It's nice for car commercials, right? Because now the light everywhere is falling what's on it. It's the reflections are real. Yeah. Just like we for actors, right? A car's a character. We're giving it the correct space to live in that we can control and shoot for hours and hours and hours. Whereas outside we're limited to that amount of time because of the sun. But it does have its own limitations, and it is, a lot.
Natalie's not a fan.
It's very
she
expensive.
I understand the benefits of it, but I do I mean,
for example, like the Batman isn't the film it is without it, right? That shot of Pattinson in the Batman outfit and Catwoman, and they're on the the high rise and that sunset. That's an LED wall, and you can't shoot that scene without it because that was the perfect time, and they were able to shoot it for hours and get the performance.
It has a time and place.
It has a time and place. It is a really gnarly concept. If any of you guys get on it, though, it's a ton of work and it's a ton of prep. And it's very
it's not like you
expensive.
save budget.
No, it is so
at
expensive.
all. It just gives you more opportunity. In lighting and time.
It's scary how actually expensive it is to shoot on one of those for 10 hours.
Really?
It's crazy. Wow. We got a custom quote from one of these studios, trying to avoid traveling to New York with the crew and blah, blah, blah. It was like, very, very expensive day.
It's like for a day is like a
and not only
car.
It's not only for being on the space but the pre-production work, that all the scenarios that need to, because if you want camera movement, those scenarios have to match those specific. It's a whole work.
So is that a prep day that goes into that? Like, is that
a lot of prep days?
It's a lot of prep.
Rate for the prep day? I mean, is that?
Well, it's a lot of work on the front end too. I mean, even so, when you shoot the Unreal Engine, the wall moves with the camera, so it talks to an MDR, which is also dialed into like a hand unit for follow focus. And so the unit is basically talking to the camera and the lenses, and when we're pulling that focus, it's helping shift that focus scale, right? Because when you honestly see the image right away, there may be a mountain here and a mountain here, and they're set, there's 100 yards between them in real life, but on just a wall, they're at the same depth, so it helps push that depth when you're pulling focus. So it's a lot of things that have to talk to each other, and then there's, the camera sits on top of a motion tracking thing that helps communicate to the wall as well. Yeah. So it's funny because you see the big wall, but then you see this like square of the image that moves around with it to help you, calculate what it's shooting.
Yeah, I can imagine how much work goes into, prepping those moments that you're filming. I mean,
you have to be super committed to whatever that scene is going to be on that LED wall, because you got to light it to that, and it's not changing.
Yeah. No.
It's not like you have the room to be creative in changing what that's going to be. Like, that's a choice.
It's
very
pushing
clear
what
choice.
we can do in a day, though. I think
For sure.
I talked to Corey and Mike, who just shot a spec piece out there. I think they did 10 locations in a day.
Wow.
There is actually one video that I want to do in one of those, but we can do one later.
Well, I mean, even like, you know, I think of another director I work with named Janelle. She's got this great piece she wants to do, and it would be able to be shot there because it's like how I think she has like 2 characters on like a living room couch, like swiping through dating apps, like Friday Night Sucks, and then they like open a fridge, get a beer, and then as they clink them, the couch is on like a couch, like on a beach, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that, you know, practically. I mean, you could do it practically.
Yeah, but
You know,
Yeah.
you know, we go in a studio for half a day,
it's done.
and you have that in the can.
Yeah, I think
Wow, that's
it comes convenient when you have like multiple locations that you want Montana background and then beach in Miami, you know.
Yeah, and you really want to control light, and like I said, we don't have
Yeah,
to think about
exactly.
what time of day we're doing stuff, so it takes down the line producing too. Where it's
Yeah.
like, you know, we're just any time of the day is any time of the day.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So
Yeah. Well, guys,
Guys.
this was amazing.
Yeah, you guys are great. Thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you.
This
Thanks
is
a
our
lot.
second one, but appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks for
powering
having us.
through
it's
and
fun. I could talk
having
film all day. So
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for
Yeah.
your time.
Yeah, thank you guys so
And
much.
to our listeners, you know, wait for episode 3. Thank
Yeah,
you.
coming soon. Thanks, guys.